What's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing today? How's everybody doing today? I hope everybody's having a good one. As normal, I am grossly unprepared. Pretty standard.
Pretty standard.
As always, exactly. As always. Oh, thank you, Sylvia. I appreciate that. It's very sweet of you. All right, y'all. Hey, can we get this thing going? Let's start by double tapping that screen. It's getting up to 10,000 likes. I really appreciate that. And let's get this thing moving and going. Let's go ahead and get this thing started today. I really appreciate y'all. Oh. Hey. Trump just did another 90-day extension. I guess we're not going anywhere, y'all. I guess we're not going anywhere. Except for some days, I think I kind of want it to go away. But yeah, again, Trump gets folded. Crazy. It's crazy that even when he does something good for me, it's still just he got folded by somebody else. Isn't that wild? What do you think about Trump Mobile? I'm about to make a video on about Trump Mobile. I was trying to do it before I got on. I didn't have time. But I'm gonna make a video about Trump Mobile. I just think it's hilarious that literally I've been telling people with bad reception to get off of MAGA Mobile for a year and a half. And then they created a MAGA Mobile. That is freaking wild. They literally took what I've been using to mock Trump and they made it a real thing. That's crazy. And somebody's going to buy this thing. That's what's even more wild. Someone's actually going to buy this thing. Isn't that crazy? Someone's actually going to put money and actually buy a Trump cell phone. I'm gonna let you guys know, for all of you MAGA out there who are thinking about buying a Trump cell phone, just to let you know, it's just like Boost Mobile, but they put a Trump sticker on it. Yeah, that's it. There's no infrastructure to make smartphones in this country. Zero. Okay. And the amount of times it would take to build an actual infrastructure for an actual new cell phone service would take a really, really long time, and they're not waiting that much time. So it's literally just going to be Boost Mobile with a Trump sticker on it for twice the price. Okay, let's hope for y'all that it's just like Boost Mobile and not worse. Okay, there's a strong possibility it's worse. So, just thought I'd let you know. Anyways, y'all, we're about to get this thing started, so I really appreciate you guys. We're about to open up these phone lines in about a minute or two, as soon as we get this thing up above 5,000 likes. If you guys are on the TikTok side, let's get this thing up to 10,000 likes. Really appreciate you guys. If you guys are on the YouTube side, if you guys do me a favor, go up to the top, hit that like button for me. I really appreciate that. That's how we get this thing started, and that's how we get this thing moving, and that's how we can get to some conversation, some debates, some chat, some banter. Last 2 nights have been very calm. Knocking on wood. Oh no, where's that? I gotta go the underside of my desk. Last 2 days have been very calm. So I'm almost scared. I'm almost scared. All right. Dave, we're not doing train night tonight, man. I'll let you know, though. I'll let you know. But hi, Dave. How are you doing? Could I grab the camera for an edit? What do you mean, like where I'm doing? Edit that however you want. I don't bother me. You're not gonna hurt my feelings, sweetheart. All right, y'all. Let's go ahead. Oh, I'm not dividing America. Believe it. Trump is dividing America. I'm just pointing it out. I did see that, Matt. I did see it. Like, the question is are they using that phone or did they just Google cell phone and then just like Photoshop gold on it and put it on there? We don't know. Oh, the camera? Oh, that is the. Oh, yeah, that's right. I can't grab the camera. What? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not. Justice, because I haven't opened up the phone lines yet. Okay. That's why my phone, the phone's not working because I haven't turned it on yet. Okay. I have to turn it on first. See, I'll say, hey, phone lines are now open, but I can't do that until I bring up my backup account, and I can't bring up my backup account until we get to 5,000 likes. Not on YouTube. You guys don't worry about it. Your likes don't matter. TikTok, I got to get to 5,000 likes. That's what I've been waiting on this whole time. All right. There we go. We did it. All right, let's go ahead and open up these phone lines, get into some conversations. Like I said, knock on wood, they've been very calm the last 2 days. And honestly, I think I'm going to kind of keep it that way. So if I just get annoyed, I'll probably just, I don't know, not talk to you. We'll see. Remember, this is my live and I'll just not talk to you. I don't owe you anything. All right, well, let's go ahead and get this thing started. And we're going to start by putting on the headset. I need that or I'm not going to be able to hear anyone. Oh, that's better. When was the last time you took a shower? Literally 5 minutes before I hit the live button. I literally got out of the shower and got here. So I had to because I had a little procedure done today and I had iodine. When was the last time I held a job? Today when I woke up and went to work. Man, these questions are easy. I hope all of these questions are like that people talk to me about. I hope they're all as easy as the questions I'm being asked. Hello?
Hey, what's going on?
How old are you?
Well, I'm in my late 20s.
All right. Do you support Trump?
Yes, sir.
Why is that?
Immigration, mainly.
All right. What about immigration?
We should have less of it. We should have completely no... Honestly, we shouldn't have any immigration, legal or illegal, but especially, obviously, illegal immigration we need to put a stop to. The narrative put forth by mainly the Democratic Party and I guess like the left wing in America is that either immigration isn't a problem or that it's beneficial to the country or something.
That's not true.
Of those. Yeah, no, I'm just outlining my position. So my position.
No, you're outlining somebody else's position and the other person's position is wrong. When you were just talking about your stance on immigration, I have no problem with that. I'm not going to argue with you on what your position is. But then you went to the position of the left is that there's not a problem with immigration. That's just a lie.
Well, it's the position is that it's not like like deporting people and stuff like that it's somehow like not okay because it's like overreacting or something, right?
That doesn't even make any sense. If you just take 2024 and look at the deportation numbers from 2024 and the deportation numbers this year, Trump is behind Biden. Obama was literally like the deporter in chief. He deported more people than like Trump and Biden combined. Like the left has been huge on deportations for a long time. So saying that the left's position is that deportations are bad is completely inaccurate.
Okay. Would you consider yourself on the left wing in America or?
I would be in the left wing, yeah, of pretty much most places in the world.
Okay, so we both then would support more deportations then, right?
It's not a matter of more deportations. I believe the correct answer to me, in my opinion, would be the right deportations, right? Like, if we're just talking about like, hey, should we deport criminals? Obviously, right? Should we have a strong stance on the border? Right? Should we have more border patrol? Should we have more agents to patrol the border, make sure that the wrong people aren't coming in, that the cartel isn't using tunnels or boats or whatever. I think that we can all agree on that. But I don't agree with let's just deport people that are here for the sake of deporting people. I don't think that helps them, and I don't think it helps the U.S. economy. And Trump agrees with me on that, by the way.
Well, yeah, it's obviously not good for them. I'll give you that much. But
well, Trump agrees with me that it's not good for the U.S. economy.
I'm sorry?
I said Trump agrees with me that it's not good for the U.S. economy.
Well, the economy is secondary to society and to national security and to a bunch of things. So there's plenty of things that might technically be good for the economy that aren't good for the country. So yeah, I mean, like having like people who are willing to work for less money and I guess fit into certain positions where Americans for one reason or another don't want to work. I understand the logic that that's good for the economy. I'm just saying that I don't want them here in the first place.
Well, I'm saying that Donald Trump disagrees with you that it's even bad for the country. That's why he's just gone back on his statement. Like that's why he's completely just changed his rhetoric on where we do ICE raids and where we do where we're deporting people from.
What is his current? I think we might have a little disconnect. What's his current position on immigration that you're
referring to? I mean, just recently he came out and said that we need to stop, doing ICE raids and stuff in places that, like agriculture and hospitality industries, right? I assume that was a lot because, people in the agricultural industries that, and there was lots of lobbying by his agricultural secretary. Apparently, that's what I've heard. I can't prove it, so don't ask me to. Okay, that the lobbying part, but he came out and said like, hey, like we need to start focusing on focus on other areas that aren't the hospitality and the agriculture industry, which are two of the three largest industries that immigrants work in, right? And he said we need to start focusing on ICE raids in what he calls democratic cities.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the difference between democratic cities and going after people in the hospitality or the agricultural industries, I mean, I guess that's kind of just splitting hairs.
No, it's not.
I guess if you're looking at making a social change and getting immigrants out of communities where people don't want them there, I mean, I guess Democrat-run cities would probably be the place to start, right? But no, I mean, I don't support having immigrants here just to essentially just replace American labor for jobs.
So it's a replacement theory thing. Okay, gotcha.
What did you say?
Oh, you're advocating for replacement theory.
No, I'm advocating for. I mean, we can get into that if you want to, but no, I'm advocating for getting illegal immigrants out of the country. That's what I'm advocating for.
Right, but you said you support Donald Trump because of that, and Donald Trump is specifically saying that there's tons of even undocumented immigrants that we don't really need to be worrying about getting out of the country right now. I mean, that's what he's saying, right? So, if he's saying that we need to worry about the immigrants in the cities, democratic cities, not Republican cities, just democratic cities, which is a ridiculous term, right? Well, and we need to worry about focusing on them.
He essentially might as well as cities, but yeah.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's going after sanctuary cities, right?
Well, he's saying that he's going after sanctuary cities, but here's the funny thing about sanctuary cities, that's actually not where most of the migrants are going. So if you actually look at the census data from October to May, October of last year to May of this year, places like Los Angeles and urban areas in California are seeing a drop in undocumented migration. And you're seeing raises in places like Texas, who has a law against, sanctuary cities, and places like Florida, who have a similar law in place, right? So you're actually not seeing the majority of migrants going towards places like California. You're seeing them going to more Republican places.
Yeah, I mean, I support getting them out of Texas and getting them out of California at the end of the day. So,
but that's what I'm saying. Like Donald Trump isn't, right? That's what I'm saying. I understand what you're saying, but what you're saying isn't agreeing with what Trump is saying, and you're saying you support Trump because of that. But Trump is agreeing with what I'm saying, not with what you're saying, and that's what I'm trying to get across to you. Now, your stance is more like Stephen Miller's stance, right? And Stephen Miller is a very, very well-known racist, right? There's videos of him in high school, saying very racial slurs to immigrants when he, where he grew up, I believe in California, in Santa Monica area, right? He has a long history of being very, very racist. And his stance is, screw whether they're criminals or not. We need to be going after, day laborers. We need to be going after people in the agriculture industry. We need to go after whoever, right? But Trump's stance is currently, we're just going after people in cities that I don't like, right? And that's not really a stance against immigration. That's more, I just want to fight the left. It's not really an immigration stance, right?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but I mean, so when I say that I support Trump, and I think like in the context of American politics, when someone says they support Trump, more or less what that means is they support him more than what the alternative would be, right? It'd be nice if we like if you could have like a certain like specific like ideology and like vote for like some like ultra specialized candidate because of that, that'd be cool, and I probably would vote for someone else besides Trump, right? But no, what I'm saying is that I support Trump over what the Democrat alternative would be, which for 4 years in between Trump's terms, you essentially had a completely concerted effort to let in as many illegals as possible.
Well, that's not true, sir.
That's what I don't support, right?
Well, that's just completely not true. Within 1 week of Biden taking presidency, we had comprehensive immigration reform on the table, ready for Congress to sign, and it got blocked by Republicans in Congress, right? And then another year after that,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but then another
comprehensive immigration reform is then like you wanted to make more people come here legally, or what exactly you're
comprehensive immigration reform both includes protecting our borders while also making easier pathways to citizenship, right? So it's both.
Yeah, so right. I don't want easier pathways to citizenship. That's the whole point, is that I don't want more immigration. So if Biden is going to be...
Why don't you want more immigration? You haven't given me an actual reason. Like, they contribute to our economy, like billions and billions of dollars a year, right? Our unemployment rate is at a spot where we have the jobs and we need them. So it's hurting us economically, right? If we have a pathway to citizenship, it's not for, for any type of like, oh, we don't know who's coming, because obviously if we're processing them, then we know who we're processing, right? It actually gives us a better ability to vet the other people, the people that are coming in. So exactly why don't you like immigration?
Yeah, because I want to support our own indigenous American culture, our own indigenous American people. I want to support them over just like random fucking people who are just showing up.
Yeah, sir. We can do both of those things. Okay. And we have to do both of those things, right? We can walk and chew gum. We're supposed to be the greatest country on the planet. We can do both of those things. Okay. So, but really all it's just sounding like is just like, and just to be honest with you, it just sounds like I'm racist and I don't want other people here. Right. Like that. And that's what it sounds like. I'm not sure if that's what it is or not, but that's what it is. We can easily support indigenous communities in this country, like easily, while also supporting a healthy level of immigration that, again, both helps us like as a country and economically, and saves us a ton of money, to be honest with you.
So why would you say the countries, and I'm not talking about Western countries, I'm not talking about like America, like I'm just talking about countries in general, or people groups in general, if you even want to make it that broad. Why do people groups in general, generally speaking, not support massive amounts of immigration?
We're not talking about massive amounts of immigration, sir. That's not what we're saying. It's a controlled level of immigration. Comprehensive immigration reform helps to control the level of immigration.
Nothing over the past 4 years has been controlled by any means.
Correct, sir, because again, comprehensive immigration reform was stopped by Republicans. The ability to control it more tightly was stopped by Republicans 3 times.
Yeah, I'm not really buying that though, because
I'm not selling it.
Well, hold on. We do have an effective apparatus of controlling the border now, and like illegal border crossings, are like way fucking lower than they have been like recently, right? Because of the Trump administration, and that was not the case during the Biden administration.
Yeah, actually, I mean, if you look at the end of the Biden administration, once executive legislation was passed, the average coming across the border was less than the average under Trump's first term. And you're right, we are seeing less border encounters right now, but that's mostly because of the stop of legal migration, things like asylum seeking and stuff like that, right? That's not some like huge like stance change. It's just we're not letting legal people here, but that's not really what helps us, right? Because stopping legal people coming here doesn't necessarily stop people that are illegally coming here from coming here. Right? Because it doesn't add more money to the Border Patrol, right? So therefore it doesn't add more Border Patrol agents, because executive action can't add those things. You would need legislation in order to do those things. So you're just stopping. And I'm not denying the fact that border encounter numbers are down. They are. Okay. But again, border encounter numbers are just the people we're catching. It's not the people that were not.
So are you? I just want to get your position straight. So are you saying that there's likely not a change in the amount of people crossing the border, not encounters, just people crossing? You're saying that
Well, obviously,
has
if encounters go down, there's
changed.
less people crossing legally. Yeah. But
No, I'm not saying
I have no way of knowing whether people are coming. I would assume that it's probably lower. Okay, I don't know how much lower. Because again, these are just estimates. We can't count the people that we don't see, right? But just as easily as I can make an argument that since there's less border encounters, right, there's less people showing up to the border like entry control points. There's less people showing up there's less people that are sneaking around. I can just as easily make an argument that because there's less showing up to the spot where Border Patrol is, there's more going the opposite way, right? I can make both arguments, and I just don't know.
Yeah, that's fair, honestly. But like, we should also, again, I'm just trying to make my position clear that we should both have an increased investment in border patrol. I don't like Border Patrol and whatever agencies are responsible for securing the border. We should have that. But also, if you just like show up on the fucking border and like claim asylum, we shouldn't just like let you in. And that's exactly what's been happening for the past 4 years.
Well, it's not just been what's happening because only 61% of people that showed up at the border were actually even given a court date for asylum, right? And again, the border legislation under the Biden administration would have restricted who was even let in, so that would have decreased the number of people that were allowed to seek asylum in this country and given a court date, right? And then once they're given a court date, then they're sent to immigration court, which takes 5 years. Which again, under the Biden administration, if the legislation that the Biden administration was trying to pass, it would have dropped that from 5 years to 6 months. So the people that were seeking asylum that shouldn't have been here would have been in the U.S. less time. So it seems like you would agree with that, right? You don't want them here, like, because again, only about like 8 to 12% of people that seek asylum actually are granted asylum. So you would think you'd want the other, 88 to 92% out quicker, and that would have been fixed under the Biden administration, under the legislation that was that Republicans blocked again, right? But even under that time, only 61% of asylum seekers were actually let into the country and given court dates.
So hold on, and I'm not trying to debate with you right now. So if 61%, are you saying that of the people who showed up at the border and like declared asylum, requested asylum, only 61% of them actually got let into the country? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Of the asylum seekers, I'm not talking about all people. I'm talking about just asylum seekers.
What happened to the other 39%, bro?
They were immediately deported.
Really? I need to find some.
Customs and Border Protection has all the numbers on this.
I'm sorry?
Customs and Border Protection's website has all the numbers on this.
Okay, because it was my understanding that generally speaking, and this is why, right, when people cross the border, like for the past 4 years, they haven't even been making an attempt to like hide from border security. Like they would like proactively like go find like government officials to claim asylum because it was understood as like a pretty fucking safe thing to do and that you wouldn't get deported. So hearing that like 4 out of those 10 people would just automatically get deported, that like again, like there's a chance that you're right.
Well, this is why the media on the right reports border encounters, right? Whenever they tell you, oh, there's 10 million people or 20 million people or whatever number of people that, it changes depending on which right-wing news network you're watching, right? They all say that they illegally crossed the border. It doesn't say that they made it in, right? They're counting border encounters, right? Which is just, like you said, like when people come across the border and they go to Border Patrol and they try to seek asylum, that's an immediate, like they have crossed the border illegally, right? That's the number that they use. They don't mention the fact that 40% of asylum seekers were turned back around. They just say that they had crossed the border illegally, right? It's a play on words because you have to cross the border illegally to seek asylum. And like you just, so eloquently pointed out, the people that are crossing the border illegally are rushing to Border Patrol agents to seek asylum, right?
You don't cross the border to seek asylum. That's just not true.
Well, 8 U.S. Code 1158 disagrees with you then, sir.
No, you're telling me that if I showed up to the Mexican, or I mean, it could be the Canadian border, doesn't matter. You're telling me if I showed up to the U.S.-Mexican border and I located a U.S. official on the Mexican side, like on the border, right? Like I didn't legally cross them on the border, and I asked for asylum or I declare asylum, they're just gonna like ignore me? Like what?
They legally can't grant you asylum.
Okay, I need to do some more research on this because
8 U.S. Code 1158. I can read it to you if you like. I can pull it up.
yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to get you in like a fucking gotcha. I'm more just kind of
You're not. I know exactly what the law says. I have read it more times than I wish I had to.
Yeah, you said it's 8 U.S. Code what?
1158.
1158.
Yeah. So paragraph 1, and I'll read it for you while you're pulling it up. It's fine. Any alien who is physically present in the United States, any alien who is physically present in the United States, which means they've already crossed the border, right? Or who arrives in the United States, whether or not at a designated port of arrival, and including an alien who is brought to the United States after having been interdicted in international or United States waters, irrespective of an alien status, may apply for asylum in accordance with this section. So there's
any alien who is physically present in the United States or who arrives in the United States, whether or not just designated port of arrival. Huh. Wait, so if I like, and again, I'm more just asking out of curiosity. If like this was like the 1980s, and like I was in some like repressive regime in fucking Eastern Europe or something, there would be no way for me to apply for asylum in the United States without physically.
You could apply for refugee status. It's a little different. Same idea. But no, in order to seek asylum, you actually have to be in the country.
I mean, it kind of seems that even like I'm acknowledging that this is true. Like this isn't like you didn't make that up. Like I appreciate you for that. But this kind of just reads as a loophole, right? That if you're from like some repressive country, or even if you're not from a repressive country, you're just in a bad situation, and you need to get out, right? Like it kind of seems that you're putting yourself in a position where you're in like a moral quandary to get deported by being here first, as opposed to like applying for that while you're still where you're at, right?
Right.
It kind of, and like I mean, from a personal level, like I don't want whatever it says 1158A or whatever. That doesn't seem like a good law, right? Like this, like I don't just want this like moral dilemma of like people just like randomly fucking showing up here and then having this whole situation where like we can't necessarily deport them because they might be, you know what I mean? Like
I completely understand with you, and the Biden administration agreed with you. That's what CBP1 was for, right? So CBP1 was kind of a loophole to this, a slight one, right? And what it did was it allowed them to do all of the paperwork so we could vet them, right? Like we could check all their paperwork. We could, verify their credibility, all that sort of stuff, right? They couldn't seek asylum because they weren't here, right? But they could do all of the rest of the stuff without showing up, right? And then once they showed up, like in the United States, after they've already been checked, after they've already been vetted, after all that sort of stuff, once they step foot on American soil, then they can go, I seek asylum. We've already done all the back work, right? And then they're given their court date and they can be moved forward, right? It kind of helped to fix that moral quandary. But of course, Donald Trump ended that the day that, the day he got into office.
Yeah, so just to bring it out for a second, because like I said, it sounds like you're pretty well read on the kind of procedural, like legal side of this. So I'm not really necessarily trying to engage you about that much. My whole point is that it's not in our interest to be letting in immigrants that are not part of a similar culture as ours, or really, I mean, like I said, pretty much any immigrants at this point. And you can look at like China, South Korea, Japan, right, who have much lower birth rates than we do, who like their first idea isn't just to like start letting like random fucking people in.
Well, sir, if you want to compare us to North Korea or South Korea or Japan or China, no matter which one you do, then if that's the case, then both of us need to leave. Like immediately, because the whole point behind them is that they're indigenous to that land, and I'm not indigenous to that land. And unless you are, indigenous to, an American indigenous person, then you're not indigenous to this land either. So by that theory, we should all go.
Well, you could say the same thing about South Koreans then too, because I'm pretty sure there was someone else in what we would call South Korea before the Koreans were. It wasn't like as recently as Americans showing up necessarily. I'm not even sure if that's true, honestly. But no, there's no saying that like a place used to belong to someone else, therefore you can't like have a new indigenous group of people there. That's silly, and at no point in history has that ever been like standard.
Well,
Like
but
that
sir, we
doesn't
don't
make
have an indigenous people to this land. The indigenous people are still here. Okay. And then after that, you have a mix of, Europeans that came here, Africans that came here, and land that was originally Mexico. Right. So actually, if you really want to like boil it down to like, brass tacks, Mexican people are more indigenous to this land than Europeans are. Because places like California, Arizona, New Mexico, they were Mexico, and then they just kind of drew the border around them. Right. So they're more indigenous to this land than Europeans are. So again, if we're getting rid of the people that weren't indigenous to the land, then again, I'm pretty sure, I mean, I would have to go. I'm half black, half Irish. Right. So like I would have to go. Right. Now, granted, half of my family didn't exactly come here, because of choice. Right. We were brought here. Right. But you're comparing it to places where, like, again, in China, Chinese people are indigenous to China, right? So they're there because that's where they grew up. We are a country that is a melting pot of immigrants. Besides indigenous people, that's what we've been built on, is just a melting pot of immigrants. And now you're saying that the melting pot of immigrants shouldn't have immigrants. And that doesn't make much sense to me.
We weren't built. So hold on, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the word melting pot, that word didn't come about until the early 20th century, when someone who wasn't American made a play roughly based on the idea of America as he understood it, as someone who isn't from here. And then it was only like well after that, so this was like around World War I, if not later, that people started using the word melting pot to refer to America. So the idea that like having this like big amalgamation of cultures, and that you can't like say this is American, this isn't, like the idea that is somehow anti-American because we're like a quote unquote melting pot, that's completely ridiculous.
Sir, sir, sorry, no offense, but you giving me the history of the word melting pot doesn't change that we are one. Okay. It truly doesn't change anything at all, right? We're still a melting pot. You can give me the whole like semantical argument of, oh, freaking John Elkhorn from wherever invented the phrase melting pot who wasn't from here. It doesn't change anything, man. We are like all of our founding fathers, none of them were from indigenous heritage to this country. They're all Europeans. Then we saw an immigration, of multiple different communities into the United States. The Irish, who were once, the immigrants that everybody hated. The Polish, who were just immigrants that everybody hated. The Italians that were immigrants that everybody hated, right? You saw, Japanese immigrants in internment camps. You saw Chinese immigrants brought over for building the railroads. Of course, you have, black people brought over in the slave trade, right? You've seen all of these different communities, right? And different from different ethnicities come here. And now we are currently living in the American culture that is the combination of all of those, right? And again, this doesn't even count the indigenous communities and the Mexican communities that were already here, because again, we drew the border around them. So the current American culture is all of those combined. That's what it is. And then inside of that, we have little mini cultures that are all, spread around in it, right? We have, like black culture or Mexican culture inside of the American culture, right? You got it. You have it all. It's a culture within a culture, right? But yes, we do definitively have things that are American, right? Spaghetti and meatballs, American, right? But that doesn't mean that because we're American doesn't mean that isn't just an amalgamation of a bunch of immigrant cultures put into one.
Well, no, in Korean culture, like if you really want to bring it back to that, Korean culture didn't just that's not 1,000% completely endemic to Korea and hasn't been influenced by anyone ever. Like there's a reason that like the Korean language and the Japanese language and the Chinese language are like way more fucking similar to each other than any of those languages are to English, right? Because they've been communicating and influencing with each other for a long time. The fact that a culture like has influences from other places doesn't mean it isn't a legitimate culture, right? Americans have been here for like generations and generations and generations and generations, and to consider Americans who've been here for like 5-6 generations like immigrants because their ancestors at one point like sailed across an ocean and like start a colony or whatever, like that's, you understand how ridiculous that is, right? Like I don't like.
No, it's not ridiculous at all, sir. It just hurts your feelings, okay? Because you were raised in this, idea of ultranationalism in which you being, I'm just gonna go ahead and assume you're white, just by the way you're talking, because black people don't talk about America like this. So I'm right, right?
Yeah, I'm not black. That's
Yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah, I'm just saying, like, black people don't talk about American culture like this, right?
okay.
Because American culture hasn't been good to us, right? So we don't talk about it in a way that is so ultra nationalistic, right? And that's even for and that's even for the most and that's even for the most patriotic of black people. We just don't talk like that, okay? But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is you've been bred into this ultra nationalist idea to where you are American and somebody else is not. When you're just another combination of people that just made America what it is right now. And in 100 years, America will be a different version of this culture, and you'll probably be less primarily involved, and that's okay. That's good.
Yeah, I would say I'm as entitled to this country as a Korean person is to Korea, and like to suggest that like because of, I'm not really even sure what point you're trying to make, like because of like.
Sir, again,
Like,
I don't know why you keep arguing the Korean thing. You're the one who, sir.
Like 300 years ago, that like somehow that's not valid. Like I'm not really.
I'm not saying it's not valid, sir. I'm saying that the immigrants are also valid, right? And I don't know why you keep arguing the Korean point. The only reason Korea was brought up was because you brought up Korea, and then you just keep arguing the Korean point that you brought up, and I don't really understand why you're doing it, right? Because I've said China 3 times, you haven't addressed it 1 time, but you've addressed Korea like 3 times, and I haven't even said it, right? So I'm really confused on that. But what I'm saying is that immigrants have the same, like, have a right to this land and this culture just as much as Americans do, right? Like, and that doesn't mean that they have every single right that Americans do, right? It's not like you can immigrate here and immediately vote or fall under all of the rights that American citizens have, right? And that's not even saying that we should just allow all immigrants in. I'm not saying that either, okay? But saying that there should be no immigration in a country of immigrants, it just doesn't make any sense.
The reason I brought up, which we can use China if you prefer that for some reason, but the reason I brought up China and South Korea and Japan is because they have lower birth rates than we do. They have a national identity, and because of their national identity, they support protecting their national identity and supporting the people in their in-group, right? They support that over just like random amounts of immigration to like subsidize their like fertility problem, right?
You've never actually been to like Korea or Japan, have you?
I'm not done fucking talking, dude.
But you haven't actually been there, right?
No, I haven't been to Asia, no.
Yeah, like, dude, go to Seoul and then come back with that argument. That is one of the most culturally rich places with just tons of fucking immigration in it. It's really beautiful. I've been there many, many times. But continue.
As I was saying, right, when I brought up China and I brought up Japan and I brought up South Korea, from the sounds of it, and you can correct me on this if you want to, it sounded like you were saying that because they're quote unquote indigenous to that land, whatever that means, that they somehow have more of a right to like their own country or something to that effect, right? Than like who I would consider indigenous Americans do. Is that wrong or is that right?
That is not right at all.
Okay, what did you?
That could. Well, sorry. I mean, I really don't have too much of a will to repeat like this very in-depth like explanation of everything that I just gave because that's very boring to everybody else. Okay. What I'm saying is you're making a false equivalency. Okay. That's pretty much what it breaks down to. You're comparing, like the Chinese people who have had, X amount of time in Chinese territory, and then you're saying that they stick to their own. Okay, yeah, they stick to their own because they have a majority of those people in there, but that doesn't mean that they don't have immigration, right? Most people there's still immigration into China. There's still immigration into South Korea. There's still immigration into Japan. Do we see higher levels of immigration? Sure, yeah, we do. But we also see higher numbers of people from all different countries just based off of the way that this country has been ran. You know what I'm saying? So you're making a false equivalency. And again, you're just going off of a very racist replacement theory is all that you're doing is saying that, like Mexicans are going to take over or black people are going to take over or whatever are going to take over. And then you're not going to get to keep your white culture. Right. And that's all you're saying. You're just saying it in a lot of words. And I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, that's a very sad way to think about things, but
yeah. And this is why I keep going back to the example of East Asian countries is would you paint a Chinese or Japanese or South Korean person as having this like ultra racist, like replacement theory, like nonsense that you're talking about Would you accuse them?
China
of doing
specifically,
that,
yeah.
Immigration into their
China,
country?
100%.
Okay.
Even
I mean,
India, I would probably put them in the same category. This is why you see a lot of the people that freaking come to this country, especially from places like China, who like don't let their kids marry someone that's not Chinese, right? It's the same idea.
Okay, so you have as much of a problem with, I'm going to use the Chinese example. You have as much of a problem with a Han Chinese person living in China who doesn't want immigration from people who are not Han Chinese because they want to protect their own culture. You would have the same moral quandary with that as you would have with like saying about America, right?
Nope.
Is that a yep?
I said no.
Okay, what's the difference?
I'm not Chinese.
I didn't say what? I didn't say you were.
I don't have the same moral quandary because one of them is my culture and the other one is not. I have a problem with it because America is my culture. That's my country. Okay.
No,
so I have a difference of feeling in between what happens in my country. Okay. From the people that are around me, right? From where my bloodlines live, right? That's where I have an issue with it. I don't have so much of a concern with what's going on in China.
I'm not asking if you have a concern with it. I'm trying to find the logic of your point because
Sir, I think you're confused here. This isn't my point. This is your point. Do you not realize that?
No, and you're
no. See, sir, this is your point. We've been talking about your point the whole time, not mine. Okay.
Yeah.
I've been arguing against your point. You just have been gotten so twisted up in your own point that you don't even realize that it's your point anymore. Okay. That's all that's happened. You got so twisted up trying to rationalize your own point that you now think that we're talking about my point, and we haven't been talking about my point in 20 minutes.
Well, yeah, no, I'm talking about your point as a rebuttal to my point, right? That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like we're not really going to reach a middle ground. I mean, I think honestly, the China example probably illustrated our differences pretty well, and at the end of the day, I think our differences
sure, if you think this is like we didn't meet in the middle, like agree to disagree, that is not what just happened. Okay, just thought I'd let you know that.
Okay,
that's in no way what just happened. Okay, like and I'm just being, I'm not even trying to be rude. I'm really not. Okay, I'm really not even trying to be rude. But this is nowhere near that. You made a point. Okay.
Yeah.
I counteracted that point with facts and evidence, okay, and a logical conversation, and you got so lost in your own point that you don't know where you're at, and now you're trying to get out of it. Okay. So that's fine. Okay. I understand why you'd want to end it, and that's totally okay. I'm not trying to be a dick here at all. I'm just being completely honest. Okay. Like you don't even know where you're at in this conversation anymore. Okay. So I'm gonna move on to the next caller because this just isn't worth having the conversation anymore.
Hold on. I'm gonna say this in like 20 seconds, right? The axiom that I'm coming from, that America has a legitimate culture and has a legitimate group of people that are in the American in-group, that are founded the American nation, that are worth protecting, that is my axiom. And your axiom, by the sounds of it, is that no, that's not necessarily valid when it comes to immigration and stuff like that. And because that's not valid, because that's not worth protecting in the face of immigration, we should have immigration because the argument that I was making doesn't fit your preference, right? That's an axiom.
That was not even close.
Okay, where am I wrong?
Actually, you just said my point. You just argued my point as your point. That was actually kind of funny. I'm the one saying that America has the culture, okay? That America is full of culture. I'm saying that immigrants are a part of that culture, not one that immigrants should be shunned away from, that immigrants make that culture, okay? So we're protecting the American culture by having some level of immigration that is our culture. You're making the argument that for some reason that you deserve to protect something that doesn't exist, which is your, I assume, white culture in this, because if you have a problem with the immigrants here, then you probably have a problem with a lot of different people that are, in the United States. But anyways, man, you have a good one. All right.
Are you ending the conversation, or are you just?
Yes, I am.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Bye. All right. That was crazy. We got so far around that somehow by the end of it he was arguing my point. That was impressive. All right, y'all. If you guys do me a favor, if you guys are on the YouTube side, if you guys could go up, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're new here too. I really appreciate that. If you guys are on the TikTok side, let's get this thing up to 40,000 likes. If you guys would like support, I do have super chats in the YouTube side. If you send a super chat or anything like that, I'll put it up on the screen. And let's see. And I'll put it up just like this, and it'll look like that, and we'll have a conversation about it. We'll talk about it. We'll have fun. But that actually is a really cool mess. You can't force culture. Culture is just culture. That is true. And I'll put up on the screen if you send a super chat or whatever. We'll have a conversation as long as you put up something that I can put on the screen. If you like support on the TikTok side, am trying to hit a little subscription goal today, so we can do that. I really appreciate that. And I do have all the pay links in my bio. They're all at Polypolitics on Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. So if you guys like support, that's a great way to do it also. I really appreciate it. And we're going to move on to the next caller. And we're going to keep this thing going. Hi, how are you today?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
I'm doing excellent. How old are you?
I am 27.
Awesome. Do you support Trump?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I like more than I don't like. So I guess net positive, I guess you could say.
All right. So why do you support Trump?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I want to see that big beautiful bill passed. I'm tired of paying all these taxes on my check, man. Like half my check's going to the government, and I don't like that. So if he can get that through Congress, I know it's Bernie Sanders' idea, the whole no tax thing, but still, if he can get it passed, great stuff.
Yeah. So what tax bracket are you in? Would you consider yourself middle class, lower class?
I'm upper middle class.
You're upper middle class. Okay. So upper middle class, you do realize that the big beautiful bill doesn't have any extra tax cuts in it. It just extends the tax cuts that are already there, right?
There are more tax credits, and there are more especially the child tax credit. They're going to go ahead and double it, and then they're going to increase the state and local taxes, the SALT. They're going to go ahead and bring that up to 30,000, which in California, honestly, I'll take that all day because we pay so much taxes here in California that if I can deduct that from my federal income taxes, that's just money right there.
Yeah, so they've already lowered that like significantly already in the rewrites of the Senate. So that's not exactly going to happen the way you think it is. And really, it's going to be so specific by the time we get through all the SALT taxes that barely anyone is actually going to be eligible to take advantage of it. But so unless you're talking about like the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, which again has its own negatives and all that sort of stuff. But, it does have a lot of positives. Unless you're talking about that from an upper middle class tax bracket, you're not really getting much. You're just really advocating for the taking of social safety nets away from the lower and middle class and giving them to the rich.
I'm not sure how that would give anything to the rich. Could you go more into that?
Yeah, there's over $1 trillion in tax cuts for corporations, for major corporations.
The last I checked, aren't they raising the corporate tax rate with this new bill?
Lowering from 23% down to 15%.
Uh-huh. That's
Yeah.
right. You are right. They are doing that. Right, because then not only are they lowering it down to 15%, but they're also giving the incentive to not get taxed and tariffs and to have the ability to completely write off any major.
I'm sorry, sir. Can you speak closer to the microphone?
It's insane.
Can you hear me now?
A little better, yeah. Sorry, you were really far away.
How about now?
Much better. Thank you. Please continue.
Much better? Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not opposed to giving corporations a little bit of help to go ahead and bring back the manufacturing.
Yeah, those tax raises aren't a contingent on manufacturing. They're just there.
I know they're just there. I mean, I know that right now we're in the middle of like a big class warfare in this country where it's the rich versus the poor and vice versa. And I understand it. I definitely understand it quite a bit. But I also understand that our middle class has been chewed away at. It's been picked away at for the past several decades. And I'd love to see some good jobs come back to America. I mean, back in the day, we used to do all the machinery, and now that's all made in China and other countries now. And then a lot of the manufacturing is going overseas as well. And you can argue whether or not manufacturing is a well-paying job or not, but at the end of the day, it's better paying than a 45-year-old working at McDonald's, unfortunately, working 2 or 3 jobs when they can just be on an assembly line making $30 an hour, feeding their family. So I'd like to see those jobs come back, and if it takes some more corporate tax cuts and some incentives to get them to come back, I'm all for it.
Yeah, so let's be clear on multiple things, right? One, the beginning of the destruction of the middle class came under Reagan, and that happened after large corporate tax cuts, right? So we see when we do large corporate tax cuts like this that the middle class is destroyed because money sits stagnant within our economy, which is a huge negative for the economy, right? It's a huge negative, especially specifically for the middle and lower classes, right? But for the economy as a whole, okay. So that's first of all. Second of all, when we talk about job building, right? Corporate tax cuts don't incentivize job building. There's only really one thing that incentivizes job building. But currently, right now, and as of the last numbers I looked at was March. I'm sure the numbers have been updated for April, but I haven't looked at them yet. We had 7.2 million job openings in the United States and 7.2 million people that were unemployed, right? So bringing up like these manufacturing jobs aren't really going to help anything. Not to mention the fact that bringing those manufacturing jobs would just do a significant job of increasing prices on all sorts of goods. So therefore counteracting any benefits they would have as far as getting a job, right? If you get a better job, but cost of living goes through the roof, then it doesn't really matter, right?
Well, you're speculating that all the costs are going to go up significantly to the point to where it's just going to counteract any benefits we have of coming back. At that point, why do anything, right? Just say that's a very pessimistic view of it, and there's no proof behind any of that information.
Yes, it is. We can take a look at, general products that are made in other countries and see the cost that they have to pay, and then move that over in the United States and see the cost that they would have to pay for those exact same things, right? We look at things like cost of labor. Cost of labor in places like anywhere from China to Taiwan to the Philippines is significantly lower, right? So if we were to adjust that price for the, minimum wages in the United States, and that's just the minimum wages, we're already talking about, huge increases, at least, 2 times, right? But in a lot of places, more like 3 to 4 times just in labor costs, right? So you can obviously look at it. And again, that's just looking at bare minimum of the minimum wage. And you're already trying to make this argument that, people, it's better than working a job at McDonald's. But McDonald's in some places doesn't even make minimum wage. They make much higher wages than minimum wage, right? So now we have to beat that out. So now you have a worker that, a median household income in, certain parts of China, in manufacturing parts of China is $20,000 a year, right? And now you're saying that in order to bring it over here, you're going to have to pay someone at the median household income of $67,000 a year, right? Now we have that. Where's that cost going to go? It's not going to disappear.
Well, you're not taking into account the profit margins because myself, I hate to say it, but I did a lot of importing from China over the past decade. It was just really good money, and my profit margins on Amazon were in the 100%. And over here with the American companies, at least the average one, obviously not like Walmart and Amazon, but you're looking at 10-15% profit margin as opposed to what I was getting around a 400% profit margin. And so at the end of the day, you're only taking into account the labor rate, which you mentioned the median income in China is 20 grand for the home, and over here 67. Okay, yeah, that's like a 3x price, almost 3.5x price, but you got to take into account how much money is the company actually taking on. How much are they charging the American consumer as opposed to how much they're actually being billed by China to get their stuff over here. So I don't really see any proof, at least so far yet, that any manufacturing here in the USA would increase prices dramatically.
That's kind of a crazy thought. But second of all, what incentive would they have to decrease their own profit margins?
It's not so much that they're decreasing profit margins. It's just that here right now with the way that the tax code works is that you're really incentivizing companies to go ahead and not hold on to cash.
What? Hold on. Excuse me. What was that?
They're incentivizing companies to spend the money so that they don't get taxed.
I'm sorry. Are you? Do you live in the United States?
I live in one part of it. Do you?
Yes, I do. Yeah, and we literally saw record profit margins from companies after Donald Trump's last tax cut. We saw record profits from major companies after Donald Trump's last tax cuts. We literally saw all of that money stagnate, and they didn't get any, they did hold on to all their money. And that was from the last, 12 or 13% tax cut that Donald Trump did in the first term. So in his first term. So why would a company who's been literally using all of that tax money to give bonuses to CEOs and give stock buybacks and keeping all of that money and not spending it, why would a new tax cut force them to spend it?
The last time that those tax cuts came into effect, all of a sudden all this construction works that are popping up around where I live and around like the general area in this area of California, which is the most expensive area, by the way. All of a sudden you get Universal Studios, Mario Land. Now you have the Fast and Furious ride. Now you have all these crazy projects coming up all of a sudden from like one day to the next as soon as the 2017 tax cuts came in. So firsthand, I'm seeing people getting better lives because companies.
Well, didn't that open in like 28? Didn't that open in like 2018?
I was working on that project. It opened up in 2020.
2021?
Or 2022, I believe. Yeah, I mean, I'm part of a big part over here in the whole Southern California area construction. I'm very well known in this area and well versed in what's going on. And all of a sudden, as soon as those tax cuts came into effect, there's money being spent like crazy.
Yeah. So if there was money being spent like crazy right after those tax cuts hit, then you would have seen it like not for like 5 more years. So if everything was just jumping into spot, then it had nothing to do with those tax cuts.
Why are you assuming that it would take 5 years for someone to spend money?
You think that somebody is developing an entire theme park, getting the land for it in California, getting all the permits and leases to do everything in a matter of a year? Is that what you think?
Here's the way that I'm understanding that it works. Because before with the previous tax cuts in 2017, they were only allowing big investments to be tax deductible over a long period of time. An incentive to go ahead and just.
You said you're a construction guy, right?
What was that?
You said you're a construction guy, right?
I do most of it because I do mostly construction because it's where the
yeah, that's awesome. When do companies expand?
Say it again.
When do companies expand? This is like economics 101.
When do companies expand?
Mm-hmm.
And when they are awarded contracts and they need labor to be able to fulfill those contracts.
That's not what I'm asking you, sir. If Walmart is going to put a new store someplace, why do they put a new store there?
You asked me a question and I answered it correctly. So I'm like,
no, you didn't. No, you didn't. No, you didn't, sir. You said when they're awarded a contract, sir. I'm talking about well before they're awarded a contract. When do they decide they're even going to have a new contract?
When they're bidding on the contract. Oh, okay.
All right, let me try to make this like a little easier. Okay, we'll try our best. We'll try our best to make this easy. Okay, we'll do our best. Okay. Walmart wants to open up a new franchise in your city. Why do they want to do it?
Because they want to make it easier for people to go to a Walmart, and so they can get more customers.
They want to make it easier. So there's already a Walmart there. Why do they open up a new one?
If there's already a Walmart in a town and they want to go ahead and open another one,
mm-hmm.
Sure, that must be a humongous city because I haven't seen any towns that have more than one Walmart in them. But
oh, then you don't live in California. Then you're lying easily. But regardless of any of that, right? They open it up when there's a demand, right? Companies don't expand because they have money in their pockets. They expand because there's a demand, right? If a Walmart in one town if there's a town with one Walmart in it, right? And they decide to open up another Walmart, they're opening up that other Walmart because the one Walmart has such a demand that they can't handle it. And so they'll open up a second one.
It's
right?
insane.
Yeah. That's why they would do it, right? And we see that expansion. Hold on one sec. Sorry. That's stupid TikTok. So we see this expansion only when there's a demand, right? So giving companies more money, saying Walmart, here's more money, does not now create a demand for another Walmart, right? If they're not going to open up that second Walmart in that town just to have one, just because they have extra money. Why? Because they don't have the demand, so therefore they're not going to make any more money off of that Walmart. And here's an even more fun spot, right? If there was a demand for that Walmart, they would have built it regardless of the tax cut. Right? Because they already have the demand for it. They would have done it regardless. All right. So that's why I'm saying that we've seen this over and over and over, that tax cuts do not create expansion and they do not create job creation, because just like companies expand when there's a demand, they hire when they need more people to meet that demand. right? That is when they expand. And therefore, creating the demand is actually what creates job expansion and store expansion and all that sort of stuff. And the way that you do that is by a stimulation of the economy. And one of the ways to stimulate the economy is to actually tax corporations more.
Can you see that last part again?
I said, and one of the ways to stimulate that economy is to tax corporations more.
Is to tax corporations for it. So honestly, at the end of the day, I don't understand how anyone could think that giving the government more money is a good idea, and how it's better spent in the money of a government who can't even keep tabs on $1 trillion that was lost at the Pentagon, just completely unaccounted for. $1 trillion. Do you know how much money that is?
Sir, I'm not advocating for giving more money to the government. I'm advocating for giving more money to the middle class.
And you're talking about doing that by raising taxes, right? Isn't that what you just said? That
By moving the tax, instead of tax, Donald Trump is not doing any of what you're saying. He's just giving large tax cuts to rich people, and he's taking from poor people to do it. Okay, he's cutting things like SNAP, he's cutting things like Medicaid, and giving that money to rich people.
He is not cutting those programs.
I'm sorry, sir. Didn't you say that you liked the big beautiful bill? Have you read it?
Well, you're telling me now that it's been amended, so I must have read a former version. Can you go ahead and update?
Well, the former versions definitely had the $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid in it.
$880 billion in cuts in Medicaid. No, you're misinformed.
Okay, sir. Well, sir, if you didn't read it, that's okay.
That's the whole budget. That is Medicaid's budget. You can't just cut the whole thing. He's not going to cut the whole thing. That's
sir, how many pages was the big beautiful bill?
Too many.
How many?
Why does that matter to you?
Just give me an estimate.
It was around almost like 1,000 pages.
Okay, and did you read 1,000 pages?
No, did you?
No.
So then why are you acting like you know more than I do?
Because you're the one who said you read it.
I did not say I read it.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe you should go read it because those cuts are in there, along with cuts for SNAP benefits, okay? All of that money is going to rich people, okay? This isn't less money for the government. This is literally freaking, a movement of wealth, right? This is I forgot the term right now. I don't know why I'm blanking, but it's literally moving money from poor people to rich people's pockets. That's all it is.
It's bold to assume poor people have money to give away anyways.
They don't.
You're not talking about transferring wealth from the poor.
Transfer of wealth. There we go.
You're talking about the transfer of wealth,
distribution of wealth,
printed money off the printing press into the pockets of wealthy people.
No, sir, I'm not.
Because the poor Americans don't have any money to give up to the rich. You know who does? The government. Who's
poor people don't have any money. That's why they're going after their SNAP benefits. Literally, people who are so poor, they need government help to feed themselves. That's the people that the big beautiful bill is attacking.
That's a negative.
All right, sir. I'm not going to argue with you about what's in the bill. Okay?
Okay. I think that's why, since both of us are not, well versed in it.
No, I'm pretty well versed in it. I didn't say I didn't read every page of 1,000 pages, but I'm very well versed in it.
All right. Well, if it's currently in the Senate, I'm sure everything you and I know about is probably going to change by the time it passes. So let's go ahead and talk about this at a different time.
Okay, then why are you arguing for a bill that you're saying isn't even going to be there?
Why are you arguing against me for a bill?
Sir, I asked you a question. I didn't ask you to turn around and ask me a question back. I asked you for a question. I asked you a very specific question.
Why am I arguing? Why am I pro-Trump, or at least partly pro-Trump because of the bill?
Yeah. How are you so for a bill that that A, you don't know, and B, you're saying is going to change, so probably all this stuff in it isn't going to matter anyway?
At the end of the day, it's just because you're giving hope to Americans that, hey, things are going to get better. And that's at the end of the day what politics is. It's giving hope to the American people. What?
No, that's not what politics is. Politics is not, let's pass a horrible bill for Americans to give people hope. What politics should be is let's pass a bill that's good for Americans. See the difference?
There's no such thing as a bill that everyone's going to be up for. So you can be on either side of the aisle and be like, that bill sucks.
I don't care what people's opinions are on it. I'm saying bills that actually help Americans. Not what their opinion of it is, right? Tons of people were against the $1 trillion infrastructure bill, that happened in that happened in
Insane.
America. But guess what? Everybody's benefiting of it, whether benefiting from it, whether they liked it or not.
$1 trillion infrastructure bill. I know that the money's been slow to come out, but it hasn't coming out very slowly for sure. So there is somewhere coming out from that bill.
Yeah, again, sir, when projects are assigned, they take many, many years to actually get going. We don't say, hey, people don't go, hey, we're going to spend money on this, and then all of a sudden, just boom, money is being spent.
Yeah, because you're talking about the allocation of grants. I was talking about the tax credits and the tax cuts. So I mean, it's a different topic, but you're saying that you prefer politics be about bills that actually help people, but I'm not understanding why you think that certain bills would and certain bills won't, just based off of your own political opinion.
Yeah, again, sir, I care about the majority of people, not rich people. So therefore, the tax cuts help large corporations like Walmart, and takes money away from people on SNAP and Medicaid. I care more about the people on SNAP and Medicaid than I do about rich corporations who are just going to pocket the money. I don't need to give more money to people who are sending Katy Perry into space at the expense of people who can't afford to eat. Okay, that it's not a very difficult thing for me to look at the bill and go, hey, this is not what I want from the bill, right? I want things that actually help the larger majority of people. Like it's not very difficult to figure out.
Who's getting the money from the $1 trillion infrastructure bill?
Again, the richest people in the freaking United States, large corporations, the top 1%.
Because they're the only ones that are able to fulfill those contracts. So, I mean, it's doing exactly what you said.
Sir, it's not an incentive to fulfill contracts. It is just a tax cut. Here is money. It's just handing them money. It's not handing them money, now go do a contract. It's just giving them money.
You don't just give. The government is not allowed to just give private corporations money. They're not allowed to do that. That's not how it works. The government has a allotted amount of money that they have to get some certain work done. And so the vast majority of the time, they use private contractors in order to get that done. And the government is obligated to go with the lowest bidder. That's just like a little, fun fact for you. But that money is just sitting there in a pool until a private contractor, if need be, bids on it, and then they're awarded the contract. That's the way it works in every dollar.
Sir, do you not know what a tax cut is?
We're not talking about tax cuts. You're talking about
that is literally the only thing we're talking about right now. Literally the only thing we're talking about right now is the tax cut. The whole we've been on this conversation for so long. Literally all we're talking about is the tax cuts. Like that is all we've been speaking about for so long.
You're time for losing track of the conversation, and you're doing the same thing right now. We were just talking about your $1 trillion infrastructure bill and how that money is being sent out to Americans, and I'm asking you, it has to go through contractors. You need to have a license to do a contract.
All right, sir. Anyways, do you have anything else to say? That's of actual importance.
All right. I mean, in my opinion, I do, but in yours, no. So I'm gonna go ahead and call it good.
All right, man. Well, you have a wonderful day. All right.
You as well.
Goodness gracious. Okay. I got some super chats to get through real quick. Again, y'all, if you guys like supportive, you guys are on the YouTube side, I do have super chats open. I'll put them up on the screen like I'm getting ready right now. We can have a whole talk and conversation about them. It'll be really fun. If you guys are on the TikTok side, like I said, if we could help me hit those roses, I can't believe I haven't hit that yet. If you help me hit that, I'd really appreciate it. But even more importantly, if you guys would help me hit my sub goal today, if you'd like support, that'd really mean a lot to me, especially since TikTok's going to be around for another 3 months. So now there's no excuse not to be subbed. There you go. Michael says Trump is king. Cool, man. If that's what you really want. B, thank you so much for the super chat. Josh says people always choose the most homogeneous cultures to justify not allowing new immigrants. That is 100% true. I wish I'd gotten that one sooner, Josh. I'm sorry because that was last conversation, so I really apologize for that. But yes, you are 100% right. B, this is civil discourse. Thank you for engaging in sound and reasonable engagement in the pursuit of common prosperity. Thank you so much, B. I really appreciate that. Bat Cave Gaming said, bro is triggered his pride month had more important parade. Well spoken and educated. You should debate Charlie Kirk, but we know you wouldn't. I'll debate Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk doesn't scare me. Yeah. Everett Price said Jesus is king. Hail Satan. I really appreciate that, Everett. Thank you so much. Cam Collect says Trump is a bad person. I really appreciate that. Josh Gar, I said, I voted for Trump to keep men out of women's sports. Weird reason to vote for somebody when it doesn't really affect you. Flower only project being rushed into existence in 2025. I don't know if I caught which project that was, but I do appreciate it. And Bat Cave Gaming again. You care about them so much, then take care of it. I've donated you $10. Now go help some people and quit yapping online with strangers. Bat Cave Gaming, you know what? Just because you said that, I will take the $10 that you sent me and I will go donate that to a good cause. Sound good? I will take that $10 and donate it to a good cause just because you said so. All right. I have zero issue doing that. All right. I'll think of one that I think is going to piss you off really bad. I'll go think of one that I think is really going to make you angry. And that's one that I will donate to. Okay. And then I will let everyone know. Like which one it is later. I don't know what it is. All right, phone lines are back open. I really appreciate that. Yeah, maybe I'll do it to a great like LGBTQ plus community like organization. We'll see. Hello?
Hey, I know you said you weren't doing train things, but is it
Dave,
alright if I send you a text so we can work that out?
Dave, the train guy, everyone. We're definitely can't do
Yes,
him
hello.
tonight, man. But we're gonna do it. I promise you I will, but it's good talking to you, all right, Dave?
No, I was just asking if I could send you a text so you can have my number. So
Shoot
we
me a
can
message. My Instagram's in my
coordinate.
link tree, and shoot me a message. We'll figure it out.
I don't really have that.
Well, you're gonna have to message me on one of them. Leave a comment on something or something, man.
All right.
Bye, Dave.
Have a good one.
Hello. Hello. All right. Goodbye. Y'all, if you guys are on the YouTube side, if you guys do me a huge favor, go up and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I really appreciate that. We do this about every day. Hello, how are you today?
I'm doing all right.
Awesome.
I wanted to ask you how you think that taxing businesses creates economic growth and prosperity.
Yeah, so I did say that it can, not that it specifically does. Okay, and I used my words very correct, like intentionally there, right? So when we saw like, the most like, some of the most major economic growth, like in, the mid 20th century, right? We had corporate tax rates that were above 90 or up to 90%, right? And that is actually when we saw like huge economic growth within the United States. The reason is because that money was used to tax corporations, and that money was then given to the middle class, right? Through from tax cuts to social safety nets to all sorts of different things like that, right?
Insane.
And what that does is when people now in the middle class now have more money to spend, then that creates, the ability for them to spend it. They buy things from those corporations, right? Which then spurs more demand, which then creates jobs, which then creates expansion, right? The corporations still stay very, very rich. They still make lots of money because there's a higher demand for their products. And the middle class is more successful and grows because they have more money to spend on things. That's the Cliff Notes, if that helps.
So what you're saying is we need to then go ahead and tax corporations 90% of their income and leave them with just 10% profits, and that's how America would prosper.
That is not what I'm saying. No, I'm saying that has happened, right? Like I'm saying that has happened in the United States. I'm not advocating currently for like a 90%, tax rate on corporations, right? But just recently, I mean, we were at 35% and we had a stronger economy. So we had a stronger middle class when we were at 35%. It got cut from 35% down to 23%, right? And our middle class weakened. And I project, and I think that most economists project that I've read, that when we cut it from 23% down to 15%, that our middle class is going to weaken again, right? So I'm not saying 90%, but I think going back up to 35% isn't unreasonable.
Okay. I'm a small business owner, so we're going to dumb this down a little bit when it comes to money, corporations, and businesses in general. So whenever I bring money home, I've got bills to pay, right? Just like a corporation does, and part of their bills are taxes. Now, when I have to pay more money for my bills, that leaves less money for me to do extracurricular activities, for me to be able to do anything. Okay? So what you're trying to say is higher taxes means higher growth. But in reality, if you're taking more of my money just for bills, does that really mean that I'm actually going to be able to purchase a bigger home, purchase a better vehicle, buy more things for my children?
So can I be very clear on?
saying?
Can I be very clear on something, sir? When I'm talking
Yeah.
about major corporations, I'm not talking about your small business. I'm talking about Walmart. Okay, and I want to make that very clear that I think that a lot of that money that we take from places like Walmart, from Target, from Kroger, from you name whatever giant freaking corporation. I believe that we should take a lot of that money and give it to smaller businesses like yours, because I really do believe that small businesses, when they get those tax cuts, that is a chance for them to expand. That is a chance for them to hire, right? I truly do believe that, right? And I don't know what business you're in, and I'm sure that that your business would and could use those tax cuts, right? The problem is that when we give it as a broad corporate tax cut, you don't benefit near as much as as Amazon does, right? You might benefit a small amount, but Amazon is where the large majority of our money is going, where those those tax cuts are going, and they're the ones that are pocketing it, and they're the people that are stagnating our money. So I actually think that a lot of those corporations that make above a certain threshold, and I'm not going to say the threshold right now, but it would be a pretty large amount. But corporations that that are above that threshold are the ones that should have that higher corporate tax rate. And I think that small businesses that make under a certain amount should actually get the large piece of the benefit of those tax cuts, because I think that small businesses, probably like yours, are the ones that actually do help to spur the economy.
Okay, now you do know that some small businesses are run like corporations, so you're saying that at that point they would need to be taxed at the corporate rate.
Sir, I'm not getting into like the specifics of exactly how I would like the tax code written, because I'm not going to pretend to be that educated on taxes to know like, hey, I want, this would be the threshold, or this company would have to be coded this way, or, they would have to have this sort of license, or this and that. I'm not getting into the specifics on that, if that makes sense.
That does. It's just, with a previous caller, you guys were talking about economics and taxes, and how that taxing corporations more actually helps lower income individuals. But, if you really look at it,
It's insane.
Higher taxes means the inability from that point to spend your money somewhere else. So if we want to go ahead and help people, then we need to have those businesses have the expendable income to go ahead and purchase that labor that's necessary. And in reality, what we need to do is overhaul our education system. The reason we have a low income, such a low income threshold or poverty level, is because, one thing, college isn't free. I'm a liberal leaning person. Okay, if college were free, like some of the other countries that we have, we would have so many people that would be able to do so many different things, and that poverty level would lower. Because you can't expect people to go ahead and be able to make more money if they're not educated on it. But I don't think that taxing businesses more assist in that goal.
Well, again, sir, and I truly do believe, but we'll agree on something in a second. But I think you're confusing the people that I'm talking about with you. Okay. And I'm truly not. We have the data from major corporations, these the ultra freaking large corporations in the United States, and we're seeing that the tax cuts are not going into expansion. They're not creating jobs, right? What they're going towards is towards stock buybacks. They're going towards bonuses for CEOs. They're just sitting up there at the top with rich people that are already rich. And they're not in any way trickling down, right? That's why we know that trickle-down economics does not work, proven over and over, right? It's not trickling down back into our economy, into our labor force, into expansion. It's not moving there, right? So when you're saying that, hey, these tax cuts give the corporations the ability to do X, Y, Z, no, it's not. They already have such a high demand and make such a high profit that whenever they want to expand, they can. They're not constricted by a tax rate. Okay, to decide, Walmart's not constricted like, oh, if I get a tax cut, like this year, I'm going to build a new store. They're not doing that. They already make so much money, it doesn't matter, right? You might. right? Like you might have one location as a small business owner, and then if you get a tax cut, you might go, hey, you know what? We have the extra income. I have the demand. I'm going to open up another store. And I think that that's awesome. Okay. Like, I just think that, I think that the right has done a good job. I know you're saying you're a liberal leaning person, but I'm just saying, I think the right has done a very good job of trying to frame like this idea of taxing corporations as the left is going after small businesses. And that's just simply not true, right? Just the opposite. The left is like, I mean, even in Kamala Harris's plan, and I'm not trying to argue the specific of Kamala Harris's tax plan, right? But even in her tax plan, she specifically had things to give larger tax cuts to small businesses in the first year or two of them being businesses, right? The expansion of small businesses in place of large businesses. But I do agree that, as far as your stance on college, that we need to have a more educated workforce and that college should be free. I think all of those things would be awesome.
Yeah, I think education is very important in this country, and when you have people that can't afford to pay for that same education level as other people, yes, it's going to make that income wealth be completely different from the top to the bottom. But it starts with education, okay? That's one of the most important things that we're all missing in all of this. For us to grow as a nation, we have to really concentrate on teaching our kids about things that they love to do, so then they can go flourish and they can go ahead and create new businesses or create the next great thing, or solve world hunger. But I still believe, though, ultimately, that you can't have too much of a high tax rate on even corporations, higher corporations, if you want growth in an economy. And that's what we need to work to, is growth, and we need to balance our budget as well. We run at such a deficit that eventually one day we got to pay that money or we got to go to war. I mean, that's the honest truth.
Right, sir. And again, sir, while I very could easily make an argument for a 90% tax rate, I'm not saying that. I said 35. That's how it was prior to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So that's what it was in 2017, right? Not going back to 1950s or whatever, like when it was 90%, right? 35% tax rate is more unfair. A 15% is crazy, right? Like saying that the middle class Americans are paying more, in taxes than they are than Jeff Bezos is a crazy thought, right? Like, I still think that that's crazy, right? Again, like these people are very rich. We're not hurting them. And you're talking about the deficit, right? Like we could probably, like, if we did tax the corporations and just didn't give the money to the middle class, we could probably get completely out of our deficit by raising the tax rate to like 45%. Like we could actually probably start like lowering our debt in this country if we just moved it to like 45%, right? Like half of what it was, in the 50s and 60s, right? So, like this doesn't have to be a thing of extremes, right? You're right. We can't keep doing this to our national debt. We can't keep doing this to our deficit, all right? And we can't keep doing this to our middle class, right? We can't keep hurting them. We can't keep doing this to small businesses, right? But we just keep seeing it over and over. We see, Reagan, Bush, Trump giving these huge corporate tax cuts at the expense of the middle class. And then you see Democrats trying to recover that. And that's why you're seeing under Democrats, you see lower deficits. You see less spending, as opposed to the Republican counterparts at the time. Not saying that any of the excessive debt that we accrued from either side is a good thing, right? The unfortunate thing too is that in order to start lowering our debt and start lowering our deficit, it's going to be very, very unpopular, very, very unpopular policies that does that, and people don't want that, right? At the end of the day, we're electing these politicians, and for a politician to come in and say, "Hey, we're going to start lowering this deficit. We're going to start lowering this debt, but everybody's getting taxed and we're cutting a whole bunch of shit," right? Is not going to be popular, and those people aren't going to get elected, right?
What are your thoughts on UBIs?
On UBIs? I'm sorry, I don't know what you're speaking about.
Universal basic income.
Universal basic income. Okay, I'm not the most familiar on universal basic income. I've heard. I think you'd have to give me a few more, and I'd probably snap into it. I'm sorry. It's been a long day.
So basically, it says that the government will pay each individual the same amount,
Gotcha.
no matter if they're working or not.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm caught up now. I apologize. I have to be up at like 4:30 in the morning for work every day, so I'm tired right now. I apologize. Yeah. So
You're
my
fine.
opinions on universal basic income. I think that it's tricky. I don't think that it's out of the question, right? But it would have to be done super right. I know that's probably not like a great answer for you, right? There is a risk of universal basic income being taken too far, and that being, being hampering our economy. And there's a ability for it to be not enough, and then we have an issue with we have the issue that we have right now, where we don't have a universal basic income, and we have too low of a minimum wage, right? But I mean, we already have programs that help to limit, like, not a true universal basic income, right? But we do already have programs that try to give a baseline of income to people, right? Like, we have, welfare, we have, SNAP benefits, we have Social Security. We already have things that kind of play into that, into that realm. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I just don't know if it's necessarily going to be done the right way.
And how do you feel about universal health care?
For it.
Okay. Now, are you for free health care for all, or are you for just universal health care plans like we have with the marketplace?
No, I'm for free healthcare for all. I'm for a completely single payer healthcare system.
Okay. Now, one of the things that has been shown before, that there is no innovation without profitability. Okay, that's why we don't drink salt water, because we can't make it into natural water it's not cost effective right now. Till it's cost effective, they're not going to do it. And we're going to continue to have these water issues that we have now. If you go completely to a free healthcare system, where are the innovations going to come for medications and drugs to help people that are sick? Where does that come from then?
Yeah, I think that there's a confusion between people not paying, exorbitant amount of monies into insurance companies, and there's still not being a profitability for things like pharmaceuticals, right? You can have both, right? It really, all it's doing is it's stopping us from paying 3 times, right? But people are still getting paid. Like, currently right now, you pay your insurance company, then you have to pay your copay to the hospital. Then our taxes all go to, also go to subsidizing, these same insurance companies, these same hospitals over and over, right? And so all of that money is just getting sent to pharmaceutical companies that are spending a very small amount of that profit on, research and development. There is a part of it that's for research and development, but there's a large part that the overwhelming majority does not go to that, right? So I'm not advocating for these pharmaceutical companies not getting paid for providing a service, and I'm not even for them having a certain, amount for research and development. But, like, where we see a lot of the research and development is from tax funding to colleges, right? The things that Donald Trump is trying to cut right now, like from, Harvard and Columbia and all that sort of stuff. All of that money that he's trying to take away from those colleges because they're too woke or whatever he says, a lot of that goes into medical research, right? And that's where we get a lot of that stuff. So there's tons of ways that we can still, continue to have, extensive medical research. I mean, hell, immigration, that's another thing that's actually hurting us, right? As he takes away, student visas, where, for a long time, we've been the country that got all the smartest people from everywhere, and then we stuck them, in research labs, and that's how we became, that's how we get a lot of the medical research that we have today. It's not really from pharmaceutical companies. It does exist to a point, but I think that we can still have both.
I think that once we start offering these higher education systems for free, you'll see that the talent pool in America is higher than the talent pool in the rest of the world. But those were the only things I wanted to talk to you about, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I agree. But against and just to make a quick point on that, the countries right now that offer generally free education also have free healthcare, and they also do very extensive research, right? So like we can see how that can work. We can see it in other countries in Europe, right? We can see where we can have, free or close to free education, free or close to free healthcare, and continue medical research, all just by managing our taxes correctly. So, but anyways, I appreciate talking to you. Thank you so much for coming by.
All right, thanks, man. Take it easy.
Yeah, have a good one.
Yeah.
All right. That was an interesting conversation. I haven't gotten a chance to talk like that. I really do. Like, I wish people wouldn't think that when I say that I want to tax the shit out of Walmart, that means I want to tax the shit out of your mom and pop shop down the road, right? Like, I think that I really wish that those two things wouldn't be connected, because they're really not true. All right, let me go through a couple super chats real quick, and we'll move forward. Again, if you guys are on the TikTok side and you want to, if you want to support the live, I do have the money guns going on, and I have subscriptions, which again, you have no excuse anymore. Thank you so much, Ruby and SH. I really appreciate that, because we got TikTok for 3 more months, so we should be celebrating, right? Josh, thank you so much. Says, since this is America, keep the $10 for yourself. That last guy must not know that Trump doesn't pay contractors for the work they do. Very, very true, Josh. He's been very, very well known for that. I appreciate that. Oh my God, where was that? Caller lied to skew his narrative from Anna Vaughn. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yes, he did. Ken Spritzer said, if you donate that guy's $10 to an LGBTQ community, then maybe this $10 to an immigrants' right groups. Hey, I can send $10 to 100 different charities in about a half an hour. Okay, so you guys want to send them for charities? I'll make sure they get there. All right. Batcave Game is here's $2. That last guy is sausage hungry. John Gar, thank you so much. If you think Harris was better than Trump, then you're crazy. She was, and I could prove it, so I guess I'm not too crazy. Josh, Walmart could make college free. That is very, very true. Holy shit, they totally could. And Zachary, thank you so much, brother. How do you remain sane, engaged in these conversations daily? The level of incompetence you're facing right now is going to haunt me. First time here, I can't wait to see your other content. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it, Zachary. I'm not always the calmest. I have been very calm lately, so. But I've been really trying to stick to it. So I really appreciate you guys' support and for being here. Make sure you guys are subscribing if you're over on YouTube. We do this every day, and I really appreciate you guys having here. And Shay, thank you so much for the super chat. It says Harris is 100% better than Trump. She cares about other. Trump cares about himself. Amen to that. W's the chat for Shay and for Zachary. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are absolutely awesome. How do I handle it? I don't know, man. It's I don't know. Guess I'm just built for this. I don't know what to say. All right, let's see if we can get to another conversation. I'm built different. No, I just I'm built different. No. Remember that? Do you guys remember that video? I still think about that video of that girl that did like the I'm built different thing where she had the egg. Do you guys remember that? Dude, maybe I'm the only one, but that video is stuck in my head forever. That video just exists in my head just until the end of time. You guys don't even know what I'm talking about, but I'm built different. Hi, caller. How are you today?
How's it going? I'm doing great.
Awesome. How old are you?
I'm 18, almost 19.
Awesome. What year were you born?
June 29th, 2006.
All right. Awesome. So do you support Trump?
I did in this election. I'm definitely still, since I'm only 18, still trying to get into politics. But I kind of just wanted to hop on and, have a conversation, discuss specifically the tax cuts you were just talking about and how you don't think they're good. So could I just get your stance to start on what your opinion on the tax cuts?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you were listening to the last caller, and I kind of just outlaid my entire position. So I don't don't really know why I need to do it again, to be honest with you. Unless there was something
I mean,
that was
yeah,
confusing about it.
no, I understand it. So could you at least explain to me what a corporation is?
Yeah, sir. Again, like I told the last guest, I have no will to get into the semantics of the differencing between like a corporation and a small business, or the way that they're taxed, or the way that they're licensed. I have no will to get in that conversation because it just completely takes away from my point. I already made that comment to him, so no, I
Yeah,
won't be doing
I
that.
did hear that. Okay, I guess I'm just confused in what is your point on the tax cuts that Trump put into place?
Yeah, again, sir. So he's giving tax cuts to large corporations. He's taking that money from the lower classes, and he's giving it in in the form of tax cuts, so $1 trillion in tax cuts to the richest people in this country, and they are using it, especially within corporations, to do stock buybacks, to do things like bonuses for CEOs, and that money never trickles down to the rest of the people in the United States. And where we're really suffering right now, especially in a place where we're suffering from a problem with cost of living, that is a huge negative, where we need to be stimulating the middle class, not the upper class.
Okay. So basically what you're saying is the 14% decrease in the tax rate on corporations is only affecting, the top 10% of corporations, and it's not affecting, the top or all corporations.
That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that
Right.
I'm saying that they get the largest benefits from it.
They may, but
Or
it's
they
still
do.
They do, but in a way, it still boosts innovation, does it not?
No, it does not.
The tax cuts don't boost innovation.
No, they do not.
They don't increase the economy or help the economy.
No, they do not. They actually are negative towards it.
Really?
Yes.
Because the tax cuts actually increase investment, increase consumer spending, and increase net exports, which all affect America's GDP in a positive way.
Yeah, all of those things, they affect in a negative way. Trickle down economics does not work. That's all you're describing. You're just describing trickle down economics, and that just simply does not work.
But I'm not describing trickle down economics, because even small corporations, who get these tax cuts, produce innovation, produce more jobs.
Again, sir, I just had this conversation with the last guy, and I've already argued these points to their entirety. Like, I just got done just prior to you calling. Like, I'm so confused on like how you listened to that last guy and you came up and you're asking the exact same questions. Like, I am not talking about your smaller corporations, your small businesses, which again, like I just said to that last guy, okay, can use things like tax cuts to expand, to meet a demand that they have, right? Because they're working on very small margins. All right. Those are not the corporations and the companies that I am talking about. I am talking about your Amazons, your Walmarts, your Targets, your Krogers. I am talking about your very large corporate tax cuts, or large corporations that are taking these tax cuts and they are sticking it in their pockets, and they are not using it for innovation. They are not using it to build jobs. They're not using it to build new stores or to expand it in any way. They are simply putting it up and letting it stagnate on the top of our economy. All right. And I literally just said before I even answered the phone with you that I really wish people would stop trying to put those two things together, because they seem to have this confusion. They're trying to make like say that the left, for some reason, all right, is going after your mom and pop shop, when literally that is the exact opposite of what the left's policy has shown. Okay, just because you were saying you want to go after larger corporations to actually get their fair share of taxes and use that as a stimulant for the middle class and the lower class, does not mean that you were trying to take out smaller corporations. In that same thing, we have the ability to write tax code that separates those two things.
Okay, so would you say that the TCJA, after the implementation of the extension of it, that Apple Inc., companies like Apple Inc., the big companies, Walmart, AT&T, Boeing, companies like that, they didn't do anything to help the, middle class or, help America's GDP?
Well, they might have helped America's GDP as a whole, but that doesn't mean they helped anything as far as the middle class goes. Actually, we've seen that they raised prices. We saw that prices significantly increased after the TCJA. So while they may have increased the GDP, they also very much increased cost of living, adding to their own profit margins.
Do you think the increase in prices were due to the TCJA, or would you just say it's due to other factors?
The TCJA didn't stop it. Can I put it that way?
No, but would you say that for example, Apple's new $1 billion campus that they put in place in Austin, Texas, because of the TCJA and the tax cuts being decreased, would have increased U.S. production and
whoa, hold on. How are you saying? What? Hold on. Under what text are you saying that they built that because of the TCJA?
Well, obviously because they have more money, and you just stated that they didn't. They just put the money in their own pockets.
They did,
but
we also saw them price gouging people, right? We also saw record profit margins. Okay, we saw multiple things.
Right, but I'm confused how they're putting money in their pockets when they're producing more jobs with the money that they saved from the tax cuts.
Sir, what drives a company to hire more people?
An increase in demand.
Correct. What entices a company to expand?
An increase in demand.
Correct. So therefore, giving them tax cuts does not create a demand. It does not create expansion. Okay. They were taking that money and put it in pocket. They already had the money to expand for their demand. We've seen that. Tara, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Could you please tell me the 4 factors that increase demand?
Sir, I'm not trying to have a economics 101 class here. Just get to your point. Because I've already discussed this with the last guy to nauseum, and I don't understand why I'm doing it again.
Well, because your point's not making sense. You're saying that the big firms such as Apple, Walmart, AT&T, all the big corporations aren't doing anything with the money they made from the tax cuts to help the lower classes. Well, Walmart raised their wage to $11 an hour and gave out higher employee bonuses following the tax cut, which actually would help the middle class, giving more money to people working in Walmarts, which I'm pretty sure are not major corporations.
What percentage of Walmart workers are on public assistance?
What?
What percentage of Walmart workers are on public assistance that need help from the government in order to freaking survive?
I don't have that number.
About 60%. Were those the people getting bonuses?
Yes.
No, they were not. Okay. You're right. Walmart gave a lot of
the wage.
Sir, a lot of people, okay, got bonuses. You're correct. But those people were not the freaking lower class people. They were not the middle class people. They were the upper management people in Walmart. And yes, they got plenty of benefits. Okay. And $11 an hour doesn't even catch up to the cost of living in this country.
But they did increase their pay, did they not?
Sir, if you get an increase in pay and you still need SNAP benefits to survive, then why does that matter?
Because you're still getting paid more.
Oh, okay.
That does make sense. And what proof did you have that the bonuses?
Sir, first of all, not all Walmarts raised their wages. Okay, some did. Okay, and some did. In different states. Some did where the cost of living was more expensive. Right? I know Walmart has.
No, actually, the Walmart Corporation raised their minimum starting wage to $11 an hour.
Okay.
So,
which again is, sir, how is that helpful? I'm sorry, I'm just confused.
Well, because you just said that all Walmarts didn't raise their pay, but
I don't believe they did. I think you're lying. But even if you're right, let's try it out. How does that help anything?
Because it benefits the middle class worker.
No, it benefits the lower class workers barely. No, Walmart did not raise wages for all employees. While Walmart has increased wages for some positions, particularly for market managers and store managers, and for some hourly workers, not all employees received a wage increase.
And also, you said earlier that
now Walmart store managers can now upturn to $620,000 a year thanks to an increase in base pay and new compensation and bonus packages, including stock grants and incentives. The boost comes on the heel of Walmart's wider return to office mandate, which brought corporate workers back to the Bentonville, Arkansas headquarters. Let's see. Costco raised their salaries. Blah blah blah. For those same people, for those same store managers. And it said while those employees at the top of the company's pay scale, while those the lower end received a 50-cent per hour increase. So no, sir, your entire thing about the minimum pay wage for Walmart is a lie.
So they did increase the minimum their wage?
Yeah, on average across the board. But your whole thing about 11 an hour is not true.
Well, I mean, I can pull up the sources, but
I just pulled up 3 to say that you were lying. I can do that so quickly.
You just said they increased it by 50%. Also,
50 cents. Not 50%, 50 cents.
That's what I said, 50 cents.
No, you said 50%.
Also, according to Reuters.com, about 700,000. Reuters.com, about 700,000 of Walmart's hourly U.S. workers also got were eligible for bonuses, and which was about $1,000 up to $1,000 annually. Mm-hmm. And you just told me that the bonuses were only to people in higher position paying jobs.
Sir, are you trying to get like some like gotcha or something? I'm really like not confused. I'm really like confused on what you're trying to do here. Okay. Like,
I guess I'm just
no, stop talking. Okay. I don't know what you're trying to do here. Okay. And I really don't even know what point you're trying to make. Okay. Like truly, I don't. All right. Like the simping for billionaires thing is kind of weird. And it kind of sounds like you're reading off of a script to like try to get like some like gotcha point. And honestly, it just kind of makes you sound like not real bright. All right. I am saying, no, stop. Okay. Corporations raise their wages. Okay. Can you show me a source that said they raised their wages specifically because of the TCJA? Or could they have possibly raised their wages because wages are increasing across the United States as a whole and because of cost of living is making it more competitive in a market for them to raise their wages?
You know what? I'll concede that point. That's a fair point.
Okay. I'm not saying that people aren't raising their wages, right? McDonald's in freaking California had to raise their wages to over $25 an hour due to legislation in the state, right? But for the most part, people raise their wages for their employees when the market dictates that they must. Right. And we have seen a rise in minimum wage on lots of states. Right. We've seen a rise in competitive pay across the states because we've had to because of the increase in cost of living. Right. There's tons of reasons why they would do that. And you're just giving it to those cuts. But again, sir, we saw that a lot of the money from those cuts went into the pockets of rich people. I'm not making a claim that every single person that works for Walmart that got a bonus was rich. I'm not making that claim. I'm saying that the majority of money that went to these corporations went to the people that were in upper management and higher. That's all I'm saying. You proving that some people got $1,000 bonuses, that's great. I'm not making that claim.
Fair enough. I guess what I'm trying to say is, do you think that Trump put in the tax cuts to help corporations that are big and strong? And I know you've made it clear that you're not talking about the smaller corporations, but if you're going to argue that the tax cuts that Trump put in place were hurtful, you have to also say that it's the small corporations are also hurting America because that's what the tax cut law put in place. It affects all corporations. And America is a country of innovation, and tax cuts only help small companies improve, bringing more jobs to America, also increasing net exports, which increases demand, which, yes, it does help bigger companies, but it also helps the smaller companies that are trying to make America a more stronger, technologically advanced country. And I think for me as a voter, that is pretty important to me. Now, yes, it is also important to me that the middle class and the lower class does, benefit in some ways too. And I'm not saying that tax cuts should be the only thing that, the government does, but I also think that there is other, statutes in place to help poor people, and smaller tax cuts in a way do help poor people who are trying to be entrepreneurial, who are trying to grow. Small companies hire a big portion of people, while big companies do too. In a way, like it's still boosting
all right, man.
the
I got your,
economy.
I got your point. Okay. And I'm not making an argument there wasn't a residual effect of his corporate tax cuts that affected smaller corporations and smaller businesses. I'm not making that argument. You're right. It probably did. Actually, I know it did. Right. There was a residual effect that helped small businesses. Right.
Yeah,
That's good. That's a good thing. Okay.
agreed.
I just think that benefiting those small businesses is completely like overtaken because they're giving the small businesses the ability to expand, right? But they're also making sure that their competitors that are larger corporations have a more dominant hold over them, right? So like if I have a a small business that sells, I don't know, knickknack of whatever sort, right? And I give that small business a tax cut, that's cool. They can use that to try to do stuff. But when Walmart's getting an even bigger one, then that just helps them to take an even larger hold to make sure that that small business gets bought out or can never sell or anything like that, right? I am all for small businesses getting tax cuts. I'm all for it. Like 1000%. Okay. I think that we can do that without the residual effect of taking SNAP benefits away from people to give $1 trillion in corporate tax cuts that, sorry, I got a notification. I apologize. That hurts our lower classes when it takes away social safety nets by giving it to people that don't need it. And I think that we can do both. I think that this country has the ability to walk and chew gum at the same time. I don't think they need both. I don't think you have to trade one for the other.
That's a very fair point, and I agree with that. But at the same time, it's difficult for small business owners to want to become successful, make tons of money when their country is constantly trying to tax them for being successful, tax the people who made it, who, successfully achieved the American dream. And while, yes, it does suck that in reality, the tax cuts do also, help people that are already rich. It also helps people that are already poor, and you've agreed with that. And so I think that, you could agree that the tax cuts in some way were beneficial to the American people, and that's just all I wanted to discuss.
They were beneficial to some individuals, but not to the U.S. as a whole.
Well, it did increase GDP, but yeah, sorry.
So increased GDP is not the end all be all of all things. Okay.
No, I know.
But it did help some people. Okay. I think everything's going to affect inadvertently some people, right? Like, I mean, you can make the argument that there was, $600 on average a year that the middle class, got in tax cuts. Is that helpful? Okay, sure. I can say that's helpful. He also added $8.4 trillion to their national debt. Not helpful. Okay. He also added tariffs. Not helpful. Right? These are things that increase the price of things for people, right? So like you're saying help, but you're not really giving a full context of the help and the hurt and how they mix in together, right? Like you're just saying, oh, because of this factor, right, it was helpful, but not including all of the factors that were part of it all in the same shot. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's really whether the whole thing as a whole, the entire policy as a whole was helpful or hurtful, right? We had a lot of printing money. We had a lot of stock buybacks. We had a lot of price raises. We had a lot of tariffs. We had lots of things in there that did not help the United States. And yes, there were some benefits in there in order to, that benefited. And I think that Donald Trump, I think that's what he's actually really good at, if you want me to be completely honest with you. Like he was very good at moving the crumbs off the table and kicking it to the dogs, right? He was very, very good at just moving a little bit of money and going, hey, middle class, here's a little bit of, here's the scraps off the table. We're gonna help the rich people. We're gonna give them, $1 trillion. But here's some scraps off the table for the middle class. Here's the scraps off the table for small businesses and small corporations. There's the scraps off the table to help you a little bit, so you don't complain while I make sure all of my richest buddies get the biggest benefits. I don't want the biggest benefits for them. We can give those benefits to the smaller companies without without doing the opposite. But hey, man, I am going to move on to the next caller because, again, I feel like I've talked about this ad nauseum and I'm kind of tired of talking about it. But I hope you have a wonderful day, all right?
Yeah, you too. Can I just ask one last question?
Real quick, guys, we need 3 more subs in like a minute and a half on TikTok. If you guys want to hook that up, I really appreciate that. And we're 99% away. Can't leave it at that, right? Big T, thank you so much for the money guns. Go ahead for your question, man.
Just final question, and I'll hear your answer and I'll just leave. But do you honestly think that Trump's goal is to make, just the goal of all of these implementations is genuinely to make the rich richer, or do you think he's trying in a new, unique, maybe a way that won't work to just make America richer and stronger?
It's not unique. This is literally almost copy and paste from Reagan's policies. And that's a problem. It's not. Woohoo! This is not new. This is not unique policy. This does not make anybody anything, right? This is the same policy that we've seen for a long time, multiple times, and it has never worked. So either A, he's doing it specifically in order to make his rich buddies richer, or B, he's not very smart because we've seen history and we can read and see exactly what the policies that he's doing have done. Right. So neither way it's good. Does that make sense? Neither way it's good. It's either A, he's doing it on purpose, or B, he's doing it on accident. Either way, not good.
Okay. Well,
cool.
Thank you for what you do. This is my first time joining one of these calls. I hope I didn't make myself look like too much of an idiot.
You tried to. We brought it back though. You tried, but we brought it back. All right.
Well, I really appreciate you giving people an opportunity to speak. I think America's too separated right now, and I think it would just be great if we could just, like what you're doing is helping bring America closer in a way. And I just applaud you for that, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
I hope you do too. All right, have a good one.
All right.
Oh my goodness. Oh, all right. Did I have any super chat? I think I had a couple super chats I had to throw out for that one. Thank you guys so much for hitting the live goal on the subs up here. I'm trying to see who that was that did that sub on TikTok, but my chat here has just completely failed me. Shrugs, thank you so much for the subscription. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Dave says Kamala is better. That's why she won. I think that might be trying to be like a sarcastic joke. It did not work. And then I already brought up that how was $11 an hour. Yeah, that was really awesome. Yo, if you'd like support, I really appreciate you guys. If you guys are on YouTube, I do have super chats open, which is a great way to do it. And I will take them. I'll put them up on the screen. We'll have a conversation about them. If you're on TikTok, I'll probably put up another little tiny live goal or something in a second. And of course, subbing is always great. Try to build the sub community. If you'd also like support, I also do have all my pay links in my bio. They're all at Polypolitics. But the big, they're all at Politics, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. But the biggest thing is, as always, is make sure if you're on the YouTube side, you hit that subscriber button, that like button, and the subscribe button. If you're on the TikTok side, hit that follow button. Make sure you double tap that screen. Let's get this thing up to 100,000 likes. That's really how we show the support through this entire thing. So I really appreciate you guys, and thank you so much. And Alex Now Liberal, thank you so much for that subscription. I really appreciate that. All right, I'm gonna open up the phone lines again. Actually, sorry, I lied. I need 2 quick seconds.
It's insane.
Oh my goodness. I need 2 quick seconds and I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. By the way, he clarified that wasn't sarcasm. He clarified that wasn't sarcasm. So sorry, Dave. I apologize for that. All right, phone lines are back open. I apologize. I needed a quick second. Oh, no, that number, I swear that was the one I just had up here. I don't want to lose that one. Hello?
Hello?
Hi, how are you today?
Good.
Awesome. How old are you?
How are you?
I'm doing okay. How old are you?
23.
Awesome.
Oh, are you the TikTok guy? Yeah.
I am. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. We're everywhere over here.
Oh, you sounded like the robot when you first came in, but yeah, I'm ready.
I'm sorry.
23.
I say that like so often. It probably does sound robotic because just every caller, like, hey, how are you today? How old are you? Do you support Trump? It just becomes a repetitive thing that I say. So I probably am starting to sound kind of robotic when I say it. So I apologize.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
Let me try to correct myself. Hey, how's it going? How old are you today?
I'm good. I'm 23.
Awesome. That's great. Do you support Trump?
I guess I do. Yeah.
Awesome. So why is that?
I'm liking the tariff ideas. I'm liking how tariffs work. I like the idea of incentivizing factories to build.
I'm sorry. Just real quick. Do you say you like how tariffs work? Just so I didn't miss that. I apologize.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. I like that incentivizes us to build our factories inside the country rather than outside, and kind of tax those companies that are manufacturing outside and making that money go towards the government.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great theory if that's what the tariffs did, and that's even what Donald Trump wanted them to do. And I don't think that either of those are accurate.
I disagree with you for that. So I think that we've moved way too much of our industry outside of the country, and we need to incentivize businesses to build here.
Yeah, but see, here's the problem, sir, is that Donald Trump's tariffs aren't incentivizing companies to come here, right? For multiple reasons. One is the fact that he keeps changing them, and when we're talking about corporations that are, the corporations that we're trying to build, back in this country, the number one thing they need to be able to make decisions is stability, right? And they don't have stability right now because it's always tariffs on, tariffs off, tariffs on, tariffs off. So it completely takes away from any stability that we have in our economy in order to be able to build, right? Second of all, the level of tariff that you would have to have in order to actually incentivize the bringing back of companies would have to make up for the price difference that it would cost to manufacture here. And right now, outside of the 145% tariff that he temporarily had on China, no tariff has met that. And he keeps bringing the tariffs off, right? So a 10% tariff on, most, especially in these South Asian countries, that's not enough to make up for the price difference of how much cheaper the labor is, how much cheaper the consumables are, the natural resources. In no way is that, is that going to benefit them whatsoever. They can still make it much cheaper over there, and then just have the importers catch the tariffs, because again, those companies aren't the ones eating the tariffs. It's the importers that are having to eat the cost of that tariff.
Well, here's the problem though, if we can make a fork in China and have that shipped across the entire planet and it still costs 2 cents here in America, that just doesn't make any sense, because you gotta think of all the carbon that we're blowing into building these factories, transporting across the country, and then inside our own country we can't make a fork. So let's look back at COVID. So COVID happens and there's a huge problem where nobody can get masks. Isn't this kind of crazy where we can't freaking make something where it's a piece of paper on a string, we can't make it in our own country, relying on China, where this whole thing already started? They're working with their own problems and they have to fly in masks from their own factories to here. Why are we unable to make anything here? All of our advanced factories and manufacturing have moved into other countries. Look at Taiwan. So all of our chip manufacturing is in Taiwan. Why the fuck is all the chip manufacturing in Taiwan? Yes, we do the designing here, and they say, hey, we're the smart ones. We design all the machines, and then we send it to Taiwan, and they just press the button. But we don't have the machines anymore, and now we're stuck in this whole thing where we have to defend Taiwan from a possible Chinese invasion, and we can't manufacture our own chips. So there's look at the auto industry.
All
At
right, all right,
certain
all right.
points, they
Before
had,
before we go too far, man, I just want
yeah.
to tap on a few
Oh
of
yeah,
those
no,
points.
I'm rambling on.
Yeah,
I'll
you,
let
you
go.
are a little bit. We'll forgive you, okay? First of all, the chips thing is true, right? I'm not going to argue the chips thing, but that's why we had the Chips and Sciences Act, right? That was a specific tariff to bring chip
Mhm.
manufacturing back to the United States under the Biden administration. And
And
that
then
led
Biden went, and now we're making manufacturing, which is great here. Yeah.
right. And I'm not saying that's not that's not a bad thing. We had a problem during COVID with chips in Taiwan. We reckon and in other countries, and we recognized that problem and we directly addressed that problem, right? That's how we should see tariffs work, right? If don't like we saw it with the auto industry, right? Same stuff under the Biden administration. China was being able to build electric cars for like 20 grand, under 20 grand, and the United States car manufacturing wasn't able to do that. We tariffed it to allow our companies to catch up, right? Got it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
if you had but there's a couple things about one, Trump didn't tariff specific industries or manufacturing that we would want here. He just tariffed everybody. He was tariffing islands that didn't have humans that lived on it. He was tariffing penguins.
Yeah.
Right? So that's not bringing
Yeah.
manufacturing back to everyone. Second of all, if you tariff every country at 10%, then you're not really tariffing anybody at 10%, right? It's all just kind of even across the board. Third of all, those masks, if they were like you brought the thing about the mask, right? First of all, no one's going to want to make those masks in the United States for the cost that they would need to, right? Not that it'd even be legal, right? It's just a simple mathematical issue that, in other countries, the cost of living is cheaper. So therefore, minimum wage.
Right there is the problem where the cost of living is not cheaper in other countries.
Yes,
We
it is.
essentially have slave labor in India and China, and they are allowed to pay people terrible wages, and they're forced to work all day, and we get to turn a blind eye because it's in another country. And then companies like the Coca-Cola company are manufacturing and doing all these like Nestle is obviously one of those evil companies in the world with child labor in the Congo.
Okay. Okay. All right, dude, you're rambling again. Okay, calm down. Okay, stop.
Yeah.
Yes, there are certain countries that have that sort of labor, and that is horrible. Okay, but that doesn't change that the cost of labor that from areas that is not those areas is still significantly cheaper, right? In manufacturing industries in China, right? The government pays for their house. The government pays for a lot of the stuff that they need. They pay for the utilities. They pay for all that stuff, right? And then they're able to pay
like that, or you can say the government
Sir,
owns
let me
their
finish.
house.
Let
the
me
government
finish.
owns their utilities.
They
But
do, okay, but that doesn't change the fact that it's not slave labor. They are still getting paid above the cost of living average for their area, right? So they are able to survive at the same rate that someone making $70,000 a year is surviving. Now, there is actual slave labor, and that's why there was, sir, if you cut me off again, I will hang up the phone with you. Sir, if you hang up the phone, this is your last chance.
I'm not hanging up.
I'm hanging up. This is your last chance to stop cutting me off.
Oh, all right.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. This is why we have policy under the Biden administration that was specifically set out to stop things from like the Xinjiang region of China to not accept goods from areas of China that had like slave labor, from what are they called? The Uyghurs or I forgot their exact name, but those people, right? So while we do have places with slave labor, right, there are just places where it's cheaper. Have you ever been to Southeast Asia? Uyghurs. Thank you. Sorry. Have you been to places in Asia, right? It's just simply cheaper, right? Like I know friends that literally retire
stronger rather than cheaper.
It's just cheaper there. Okay. It is cheaper. So therefore these corporations have to pay workers less. That is just the way things are. Okay. In order to bring those manufacturing here, they would have to pay more to pay US workers. And let me also be clear that we don't have the US workers here, right? As of the March jobs report, we had 7.2 million jobs open and 7.2 million people unemployed, right? So right now we have enough jobs to fill the unemployed labor force right now. So who's going to work in these factories for a less amount of money to increase the cost of a product? Why would a corporation do that just in general?
So I wouldn't say that things are cheaper in other countries. I would say that the U.S. dollar is stronger in other countries. So I can go to Venezuela with $20 and they'll let me rent a room and I get 4-star dinner or whatever. But that's not saying, so those people will take that dollar and that dollar's worth more to them, but they don't get the same services that I would get in America with that same amount of money. You understand?
I do understand that, but from the corporation standpoint, it is cheaper, right? So just like how you're saying
Yeah.
you can go to Venezuela and your $20 goes a lot further. Well, guess what? That same $20 goes a lot further for Apple also, or for Walmart also, right? It's the same idea. It's still the dollar goes further, so therefore it is cheaper, right? So from their standpoint, from their bottom line, which is make money, be profitable, it is more profitable for them to manufacture those items someplace else.
Yes, it is obviously more profitable for them, but I want them to build here because let's even bring in trickle down economics. Like, I know everyone says it doesn't work, but I'm gonna defend it from a certain angle here. So trickle down economics didn't really work. So let's look at Ford. So the big thing with Ford that he initially did was he paid his workers enough money that they could afford to buy cars. And that allowed Ford Motor Company to sell lots of cars because everyone who worked at the factory was able to buy from the factory. So we are not doing that here in America, where there are no factories. They're paying their workers high wages where they can also buy the goods. Instead, we're sending all those jobs to another country, paying those people terrible wages, sending the product back here, and all that extra money that they get goes to the CEOs and whatnot.
I'm sorry. Maybe I missed the point that I was supposed to argue with there.
Oh, so I'm saying that by having the factories in America where they're forced to abide by labor laws and stuff, the people in America are going to have more money to spend, and that's how we would increase our own wealth.
That's fine, sir. But at the end of the day, okay, who's going to work in those factories?
So we're actually right now. So China is like they're calling it the dark age in China. Not because of that, like they're left behind, but their factories have entered a dark age where there's no one actually working in the factories right now. They're completely autonomous. So we've hit this threshold where a lot of our factories can actually be run by robots, and so it would be very low labor costs actually. Instead, it would be people who are more educated who run and repair robotics and whatnot. But also there's those other jobs within the factory where it's like you're not this intellectual, but yes, there's like the people who work the factory, and I'm sure there's people in America who would work those jobs, but labor laws would require for them to be paid.
Yeah, sir, but you kind of just proved my point for me. Okay, and I don't know if you did that or not on purpose. All right.
Yeah.
But if you're saying, hey, we need to bring these jobs here because of better labor laws, then people can work in these factories and all sorts of stuff. And then you turn back around and you say, hey, it's all for the most part going to be autonomous, right? So now we're bringing corporations back here, but nobody's actually working at them. So, or a small, minute amount of people are working at them, right? So therefore, we're not actually creating jobs, but we're still having.
We would be creating jobs, and we'd be creating jobs that make a lot of money. But China's also not going to. They're going to move in the same direction as the factories. Where they've already moved to robotic factories.
Yeah, and that's fine.
You're saying that. Yeah,
why don't we just let them do that? Like, what does that have to do with us, man? Like, we are a consumer nation. Hold on, sir.
These goods across the planet.
We can't make everything here.
That's
okay.
The problem.
No, it's not a problem.
Factories that are more interchangeable and more adaptable.
I wish that would be great, but we don't. And we gave that up a long time ago. And if we want to get that back, it's going to take a long time to change it, right? We're talking decades in order to change back to an industrialized nation, back to a manufacturing nation where we're building things in factories and all sorts of stuff. And it's going to take a long time to do that. And those tariffs aren't going to do that, right? Because the tariffs don't incentivize that, especially when Donald Trump just puts these tariffs on and then he turns right back around and turns those tariffs off, right? Hey, I'm going to put a 30% tariff on you. Oh, a month later, oh, it's a 10% tariff. Oh, next week, like he wakes up and he changes what the tariff cost is going to be all the way across the board. If that was truly his goal, right, was just we need to stop importing everything, right? Then it would be Donald Trump puts 100% tariff or 200% tariff on every incoming good, and we just bite the bullet, right, until like the end of days. Okay, but that's not what Trump's doing because that's not his intent, right? His intent is not to bring jobs back. His intent is not to bring manufacturing back. His intent is to make a deal, right? Because he's this well-known, or according in his mind or to his followers, he's this well-known deal maker. So all he wants to do is make a deal, and other countries are using that to their advantage to just allow him to get up there and say he won a deal. And when he says that he won a deal, then they just let him have it. Like if you look at this freaking trade deal that Donald Trump made with the UK, right? It pretty much just gives preferential treatment to their vehicles. Like that's like the big crux of this deal, this new trade deal we made with the UK. And let's not even talk about the fact that if he had dropped his papers like that, and that was Biden, like the right would have lost their whole mind.
Would lead us in a direction to bring manufacturing back, but the reason that the tariffs don't work is because he might remove the tariffs, and then the whole reason that he's
that's not what I was
saying right now. Well, it was a little bit what you were saying.
Well, it was part of what I'm saying, but I'm also saying that the 30% like price of a tariff or 10% price of a tariff that he's putting on isn't enough to incentivize movement.
Well, over time, it obviously will. And then during that period, we would also be bringing more money into our government, taking less money from regular taxpayers and charging people who want to buy things in foreign areas. So on top of this, do you want to bring the climate on top of this? Because we are building these dirty factories in other countries, and then we're justifying putting them on cargo ships, which are huge polluters, and shipping them here. And then people want to complain about the climate and all the CO2 in the world, but we're trying to incentivize all this manufacturing in other countries and the shipment when we should be manufacturing these simple goods that we know we're going to need every day in our own
country. But you still haven't answered who's going to work in transportation. So is your entire thing to us that we need to bring these factories back? But you do realize that we don't have the consumables here, right? You do realize we also don't have the natural resources for a lot of the elements for these. So we're still going to be importing even if we're manufacturing here.
Well, we do have the consumables. We are probably one of the wealthiest countries when it comes to natural resources.
Certain natural resources, yes.
Yeah.
But not all natural resources, right? Not when we're talking about we're talking about all natural resources. We have a very natural resource thing.
Tell me that we don't have the resources to build factories, but we have the resources to build the factories in other countries.
We're building the factories in those other countries with their resources. That's what I'm saying.
No.
When we're talking about rare earth minerals, there's a reason why we just had to strike a new rare earth minerals deal with China, right? And it's not because we have them here.
Well, we don't have them here because we have a lot of environmental laws right now, and we're trying to protect our environment, but we're all right with going into the Congo and chopping down the whole rainforest.
This was with China. This wasn't with the Congo.
In other countries. So a lot of our nickel comes from the Congo. That's what I'm saying.
But I'm not talking about the Congo. We did a rare earth mineral deal with China. That's what I'm talking about with China.
China gets their rare earth minerals. They've exploited Africa.
Sir, here's the deal. Okay, Donald Trump's tariffs aren't doing this. Okay, you can make the argument and say I want to reindustrialize. Okay, and that's fine. Okay, if that's really what you feel, I very much.
This isn't an industrial revolution.
Hold on, sir. Hold on. I didn't even get to my point, sir. Hello. I didn't even get to my point yet. Okay, how about you let me get there, then you can argue it. All right, cool. You can make an argument that you want to like reindustrialize, or you want the U.S. to reindustrialize and all that stuff. That's fine. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and say, just straight up from my point of view, I'm pretty happy being a consumer nation. Right? We get the benefit where I don't have to go work in a factory. My kids don't have to go work in a factory. Right? We get to have like bigger things that we're doing, right? Than just working in factories. We, again, like you said, we get to design. We get to have this level of quality to our products that are made in America, right? There is something said for something that's made in America, not just mass produced in another country, right? And so bringing that mass production back to the United States for low wages, which they would have to be. And you're saying that the amount that we would have to do to get there is insane. And honestly, I don't think it's even possible. I don't think the level of tariffs exist for a company to have to move all of their products back here. Because again, it's the importers that are the ones paying that tax. We are taxing our own importers. We're taxing our own companies for importing cheaper goods, right? And they're just going to pass that on to the consumers, which has been proven over and over. So who ends up paying that bill for these tariffs is the consumer. It's you and me. It's not anybody else. It's not China. It's not Apple. It's not any of these companies. It's us. We pay the cost of that. And as long as we're paying the cost of that, we're never going to reindustrialize in this country because it will never be cost beneficial to those companies whatsoever because they can just charge more. And that's going to be the market price because there isn't a competitor in the United States to compete for that price.
So you're all right with being a consumer nation? What does that even mean? If we're not producing anything, what value do we have at all? How can we?
We do produce a lot of things.
Purchase these.
We don't produce
what are we
cheap
producing if
masks,
we're not
which is like your
producing-
thing.
So that was an example of a very simple product that in the time where we needed the most, we literally could not make it, and we needed a country on the other side of the world to make it for us. And we go, oh, please, put great factories of China make these masks for us. Why can't we make these simple products that so easily could have been made here?
I already explained that like 12 different reasons why. I don't.
Well, no, I'm telling you that the reason is because it's so cheap in these other countries. And what tariffs is going to do is increase the cost of producing them in other countries, which incentivizes these companies like Walmart, who buy the cheapest goods, to invest in factories, and also incentivize new business owners to build these factories. Because so when it's cheaper in other countries, so every company is just going to buy the cheaper thing. We need to make it so it's not cheaper in other countries and make it so it's more cost effective to build it in
let me ask you
our
a
own
question.
country.
Currently, right now, there are no manufacturers of your little masks, right?
That's the problem.
Hold on. I'm not done yet. There's no manufacturer. Right now, Donald Trump put a 30% tariff on China for those masks. Okay? Walmart is now going to increase their prices, and this is out of the mouth of their CFO, is going to increase the prices of their masks, to the consumer in order to make up for that tariff, right? What company is stepping up and going, hey, you know what? We're going to start making those in the U.S. That way, Walmart can buy the mask. It's going to be super beneficial. Because again, sir, we're talking a mask that's not 30% more expensive. It's 300% more expensive if it's made here. So what company is stepping up to do that?
300% more expensive because we haven't already invested in that manufacturing spaces, though. We don't have any infrastructure here. So when we're making a mask, we have to start from square one.
And why would we start?
China, where they're making all these other goods. So when they want,
and why would we start?
The new thing that we want, because we need security. We need it.
No. I'm not saying from an American standpoint. I'm saying from a company standpoint. I want to start a company. I'm going to start a company. I'm trying to decide what I'm going to start a company for. Right. And I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to start it, for whatever. I'm deciding I'm going to build masks in the United States. Why would I do it?
Okay. I'll give you a little, this is an anecdote that I've had. So when I was in high school, do you remember fidget spinners? It was the little plastic things you spin. Mm-hmm. So what I used to do was I had a 3D printer, and I would, in my basement, 3D print a whole bunch of these things, and then I would put a little ball bearing in it, and then I would go to school, and I would sell them for $5. And I was making a lot of money. And then one day, I walk into a 7-Eleven, and I see fidget spinners, and they're $1. And I was basically just completely priced out of that.
Okay, so that's great, sir. Yeah. Why would I start building masks? Okay, because again, right now, right, if I start a company that's building masks, that's manufacturing masks in the United States, okay, they are going to be 3 times the price of the Chinese masks right now, and that's with the tariff. Okay,
well,
that's with it, and
right now,
on top of that,
let's imagine demand. Oh yeah.
On top of, sir, pick whatever product you want. Okay, the product doesn't matter. Shirts at H&M, I don't care. Okay?
So mask was a good one too, but shirts, all right.
That's fine. It doesn't really matter to me what product it is because it works the same regardless of what product we're talking about. Okay.
We can go down shirts.
My
but
product is
then
going to
we're
be
talking about
my
fast
hold on.
fashion.
My
where
product,
they're
sir,
overproducing.
stop.
Yeah.
I am going to get my statement out. Thank you. My product is now 3 times more expensive. So now I have a product that it cannot compete on the market, okay, at all, even
Mhm.
with the tariffs. And I have to pay all the startup costs for that manufacturing spot, right? Which is like 8 times what it costs in China to do the same. Or instead of doing all of that in the United States, I could just have someone in a factory in China build that, and I can actually make more for less, and even with the tariff, still make more money. So why would I build it in America?
Okay, so let's look at another country where there's tariffs.
Nope. Let's just
So
look at
this is an
China. That's
example.
the one I want.
Okay, no. So what was it again? I was going to talk to you about how Britain highly tariffs on milk from the EU in order to allow their own milk industry to survive because they want that security
Sir,
of
we are not
having their
talking
dairy
about
industry.
specific product. You're drowning in
I
this.
know, but I'm
No,
not
you're
talking about
drowning
a
in this
specific topic.
specific
I'm
product.
trying to talk about how tariffs work.
We tariff specific items. That's not what Trump is doing. He is trumping everything from every country. I want you to explain to me how that is going to incentivize me as a country to start building in the United States. That's all I want to know. Because right now,
But
I am
then you
seeing
wouldn't be
that it's going to
tariffed.
cost me more money to sell a product that can't compete on the market.
Because the products can't compete on the market because they cost too much in America compared to the cost in other countries. But we need to be looking at our own country and our own decentralized manufacturing.
So I'm not talking about the country. I am talking as if I'm the business owner.
Yes.
What incentive do I have to build it here?
You create a product and you sell it and you make money.
My product is 3 times the manufacturing costs of another product. No one's going to buy my product.
And it's 3 times the manufacturing cost because we haven't.
I'm not asking why it is.
investing in
I'm
our-
telling you that it is. Why would I start the manufacturing?
Sir, you are not making an argument right
We've
now.
already gone through why it's more expensive to build here. We've already done that part. Okay? Already done. Why would I start building here? Why?
Because you're trying to sell a product. You need
Okay.
to create your
Anyway,
product.
sir, I hope you have a wonderful day, okay?
All right,
I am
no,
not
you
going to go in
lost it.
circles with
I
you
don't understand
anymore.
why you got so.
I'm not going in circles with you anymore. I'm not doing it, dude. This is a ridiculous conversation, okay? Oh my fucking god. This is simple economics. Like the most simple economics that can exist in economics. Why would I start a company that does not have a product that can compete on the market? You wouldn't. I know that in a fantasy world, okay? In a fantasy world where we could start it and because it's American, we want to build it. That's not reality, guys. These tariffs are not bringing manufacturing back to the United States. They're not doing it. They're not bringing companies back. They're not creating jobs. It's not happening. Okay? It's not happening. Just get it out of your head. If Trump wanted those tariffs to bring jobs in, then he would put the tariffs on and he would keep them. He would make them high and he would keep them. He would say, I don't want anything from China anymore. I am putting a 300% tariff on China and that number is not moving. I want all of that manufacturing to come back to the United States. He's not doing that. Okay? So far, he has bragged about Honda, which was already had a factory here. Hyundai, which already agreed to this deal under his first term. Okay? He's not bringing anything back. Nothing. And he's bragging about freaking TSMC, which was under a fucking Biden deal. He's not bringing it back. Okay? He doesn't know what he's doing. Okay? He doesn't know what he's doing. And I'm tired of having that circular argument. Anyways, how long have I been on? 2.5 hours. That's way too long for a Tuesday. I am getting off, and plus the doorbell just rang, so my food's here. So hold on, I gotta get through super chats. Sorry, I gotta get through super chats, and then I gotta go. Minnie says the USA does not have the quality labor for these jobs. 100% Minnie, I completely agree. He does not understand that people want cheap stuff, and these products will not buy for that price that you have to. Dan, you're making this hard for me to read, Minnie. I love you. Thank you so much for the support, but you're making this real difficult. Would not buy for that price that we have to sell at a markup. 100% Minnie, I really, really appreciate that. And Jen said, thank you for everything you do. Do you have any favorites for candidates yet to run in 2028? I think that that Gavin Newsom and Pete Buttigieg have to be the top two on the list right now. Right now, it's only 2025. We have a long time, but those have to be number one and number two for the Democratic Party at this moment. I'm not saying that we won't have changes later, but I think that those are the top two, in my opinion. And I'm very willing to change. All right. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. Make sure you're hitting that follow button. We will be back on tomorrow. I love you guys. Have a wonderful day, okay? Love you guys. Bye.